Chapter 1400. Movie Queen and thought about it. Just then, the phone in her hand rang. The caller ID showed that it was the cold kid from her family who never picked up her calls. Movie Queen raised her own son and was very familiar with his ways. She didn't appear to be in a hurry. Instead, she prepared to ask him slowly, "What do you intend to do?" "Madam, I don't understand you." Chin Mo looked through the car window, his eyes landing on a figure not far away under the light. Just that one sentence. The elegant Movie Queen adjusted her shawl. "Don't feign ignorance, your grandfather said that someone came for a social gathering and you agreed." Chin Mo was nonchalant, calculating the time a certain someone would be back. Which family's son was like this? Just an MMH? Movie Queen really wanted to call her husband. Chin Mo seemed to have guessed his mother's thoughts. "Before you complain to my dad, you can ask grandfather which family is the one hosting the event." "Why didn't I ask?" "He said it was an ethnic Chinese who left China before the founding of the country. He has an ancient noble bloodline from country Y." The more Movie Queen spoke, the more her imagination ran wild. "You bunch of capitalists, socializing for the sake of profits." Chin Mo knew that his mother had shifted her resentment towards his father onto him. "You didn't investigate carefully, you can ask grandfather and you will know why I agreed." Movie Queen narrowed her eyes, changing the topic immediately. "Why don't we have your household register at home?" "I gave it to your little male almighty," Chin Mo said casually. Movie Queen thought for a moment, going straight to the point. "What does giving the household register have to do with the socialization?" "Your little male almighty needs a hint before he acts." Chin Mo didn't deny it, revealing more information. Movie Queen felt that there was a trap behind it. "Are you trying to trick Joe again?" "Madam, watch your words, we are mutually in love." Chin Mo glanced out of the car window, his long fingers tapping on the steering wheel. "All right, she is coming back soon. You can ask about the socialization. Also, Mizen, I don't mind if you become a fan of your little Prince Charming, but don't be too ostentatious. For example, don't show up at the gift-giving events that are organized. You know your own influence. If you show up, the attention will be too much." Movie Queen was indignant. "You make it sound as though I'm troubling you. I'm helping my male idol gain popularity. In the future, the Chin Group will create a few more sales channels for anti-fans like you. You can invest your money in your little almighty," Chin Mo said casually. Movie Queen tilted her head and glanced at her manager. "Your boss Chin even wants to earn money from me, his mother." "Goddess, the media, the media." Chin Guan's agent broke out in a cold sweat. He had never seen anyone with more personality than Boss Chin. Chin Mo returned to the original topic. "Don't call again, it's better not to let her know about this. I'm still waiting for her to marry your son." Movie Queen, the agent didn't know what to say anymore. He just wanted to cover his face. He really didn't expect Boss Chin to be such a person. After Movie Queen hung up the phone, she was extremely happy. When the corners of her lips curved up, she was incomparably beautiful. "My cold little boy finally got it, so that's what happened." The agent exclaimed in surprise. He wanted to ask Movie Queen, "Wait a moment. Didn't you hear what Boss Chin said about waiting for her to marry him?" To put it simply, he was going to marry her. The sole heir of the Chin Group. He was chased by countless fans. The most popular, most valuable, most profitable, and most good-looking almighty Chin. He was going to marry someone. Marry someone? The agent felt that he needed some time alone. Really, in the days to come. Boss Chin was going to marry someone else. Who was going to manage the Chin Group? And the business circle, the internet, the media, the agent could almost predict such news. What kind of explosive consequences it would cause. He still wanted to ask Boss Chin how he could say something like, "waiting to marry," so naturally. From Movie Queen's words, it seemed like he had set a trap for him. Shameless, he was really shameless. As a top smart sports car, little Blackie also wanted to say the same thing. He had been listening to the entire call from the devil. No wonder he had sent his master his household register. It was a premeditated plan. His master had actually thought that the other party was shy. Little Blackie really didn't know what to say. The scariest thing was that the devil could even see through the car's thoughts. The first thing he said after hanging up was, "I guess I have to erase your data." Little Blackie watched as his slender fingers started to tap on the screen. He couldn't help hugging his chubby body. "With my loyalty to Master, I won't say anything if Master doesn't ask." "Oh." Chin Mo arched a brow. "That's really loyal. It's fine if you don't say anything. She's here." Little Blackie immediately shut up. The moment Bojo stepped into the car, she felt that the atmosphere inside was a little strange. But very quickly, she was tempted by the Almighty's next move. His fingers caressed her face, a smile on his face. The Almighty had never smiled so gently before. "Are you cold?" Chin Mo was really trying to warm her face. Bojo wasn't that arrogant. She removed half of her mask, revealing her handsome face. "I'm not cold, my body is cold. Don't hug me. The colder you are, the more I want to hug you." Chin Mo caressed her head. With that, Bojo threw the strange atmosphere to the back of her mind. Besides, Chin Mo didn't start the car immediately. Instead, he opened a hamburger and fed her while letting her drink the cola. From time to time, he would laugh softly. When he laughed, even the moonlight outside would pale in comparison. Xiao He watched helplessly as its master fell into the path of the other party's seduction. The screen flickered twice. He had a premonition. His future days would be like this forever. Little Blackie realized it. The devil was really good at fighting for attention. He didn't just do what he wanted. Another point was that whatever its owner liked, it would come up with its own set. Otherwise, until now, his master would never have thought that he was shy. Just a moment ago, his master had leaned over to kiss him. He used a chicken wing to block his master's mouth. Then he smiled and landed on his master's forehead. "Eat properly." A little vixen playing hard to get. No wonder his master, who was so smart, fell into his hands. This devil. Little Blackie hadn't finished complaining. He glanced at the rearview mirror again. That was terrifying. Chin Mo retracted his gaze when he saw that the car was obedient. He used a tissue to wipe the corner of her mouth. No matter how he looked at her, she was still the most pleasing to the eye. Bojo didn't know that she had understood the Almighty's point without doing anything. She was kissed again. She was elated. There was something else she was happy about. She had received a message when she was buying the hamburger. Grandfather Butler had sent her the message. The content was simple. "Everything is ready. I'm now proposing marriage to the In family." Proposing marriage? Bojo realized that she loved hearing this word. Once Grandfather Butler was done, she could start on her side. Chin Mo didn't know what she was smiling about. There was obviously a mischievous smile on her face. On the other hand, Grandfather Butler was rather formal. A tuxedo was a must and he had brought along his most sincere cooperation. Everyone knew that old master and didn't meet people casually. The In family was different from the Chin family. All their business was overseas and they had been doing business for a long time. People often said that wealth didn't last 3 generations, but this had never happened in the In family. Now, it was movie queen and old master and had tried to stop her when she wanted to enter the entertainment industry. But because of that kid from the Chin family, old master and had relented. After all, that person had said that no matter what, someone would inherit the In family's business. To say that this point had really been achieved. Especially his grandson, who had been outstanding since he was young. Many people wanted to get to know him. Most of them were socialites. Both domestically and overseas. But Old Master knew better than anyone else. That kid had always had someone in his heart. It was also because of that person that Old Master had never asked about his grandson's marriage. Because he knew better than anyone else how long his little grandson had waited outside the door with the amulet when he had moved back from overseas. Honestly speaking, that was the first time he had seen his grandson in such a vulnerable state. His mother had been worried that his grandson didn't want to return. In reality, it wasn't just that he didn't want to return. It was that his little friend had suddenly disappeared. That was also the first time he had heard his grandson ask such an innocent question. At that time, his grandson had been really young. No matter how young he had only reached his waist. He had raised his exquisite little face. "Grandfather, do you think she will come back?" Old Master had been in the business world for many years. With one look, he could tell that the family next door wouldn't be coming back. Everything had been moved away. It was as though she had never lived here before. The connection had been cut off so suddenly. Something must have happened. Old Master knew it clearly. But he still told his equally rational grandson a small lie. She likes you, so she will definitely come back. But I quarreled with her. The little grandson was like a little prince. He stood under the moonlight, still wearing that little suit. When he pouted, his eyes were a little red. "She is so stupid, she doesn't even know how to use the blanket at night. She always likes to climb over the wall. When she plays games, she doesn't care about anything else. She doesn't even know how to roll up her sleeves when she brushes her teeth." At that moment, Old Master finally understood. The child next door. What exactly did she mean to his grandson? That grandson of his was very cold to everyone. He had never liked to talk since he was young. But he had said so much in one go. With every sentence he said, the emotions in his eyes deepened. Old Master couldn't bear to do that. But the Bow family had a special identity and many things couldn't be controlled. Originally, at the start, he had thought that the child would forget after a month. But looking at his grandson who wasn't even willing to eat, Old Master had been really anxious. It was impossible to contact the Bow family. Hence, he had brought his grandson back to the country. He wanted to leave that place with memories. It would definitely be better for his grandson. But still, there was nothing. At that time, his grandson seemed to have been completely plated. He had become normal. Perhaps it was obvious that the gap between him and his peers was getting bigger and bigger. Very few people had seen him smile again. His personality became more and more indifferent. He didn't even have a little willfulness anymore. Old Master had always felt guilty about this. If he hadn't brought his grandson overseas, this situation wouldn't have happened. Just like that, 1 year passed. 2 years passed. Old Master had thought that time was enough. When people came to befriend him, he would see if there were any cute children of the same age. That way, his grandson might get better. But very quickly, he also realized that no matter how cute the children were, his grandchildren were all the same. He didn't have those people in his eyes. Except for those 2 or 3 of his good buddies. When little girls came, he wouldn't even lift his eyes. At that time, there were tomboys who liked to climb over the wall. The girls raised in the military compound were more or less tougher than the girls outside. But his grandson was still indifferent. Maybe he thought he was indifferent. Grandpa clearly remembered what his grandson had said before he went to bed that day. "Grandpa, don't worry. She never climbs over the wall like this. I'm always worried that she'll fall off the wall, but she doesn't worry and doesn't look at anyone. You said that she likes me so much, so she'll definitely come back. I'm still waiting." Old Master had never thought that a boy who wasn't even 10 years old would say such a thing. He didn't sleep for the entire night. When he woke up the next day, during breakfast, he treated his grandson the way he would treat an adult. Because Old Master knew that he couldn't treat his grandson, who had a heaven-defying IQ and EQ, like a child. Many things are complicated. Sometimes, our wishes might not come true. You and Jill are too young. If she doesn't come back, you can't keep waiting, right? He looked up from the dining table. His little face didn't have any edges yet, but he vaguely looked like a man. If she doesn't come back, I'll look for her. It's not a big deal. If I can't find her in a year, I'll look for her for 2 years. If I can't find her in 2 years, I'll look for her for 3 years. After a long time, I will find her. If I really can't find her, I'll stand in the most dazzling place for her to see. I taught her the Chinese characters, she can't just eat them. Old Master and didn't say, what if she forgot about you? But what happened next was beyond his expectations. It wasn't that she forgot about him. It was that his grandson forgot about the person he had been looking for. Every time Old Master and thought of this, his heart would feel terrible. He couldn't help but feel terrible. He forgot about the person he liked so much. How would his grandson feel? This thought made him unable to sleep. Now, he actually saw a certain symbol again. Chapter 1401. 3 years after the Bow family had moved away. They had met before. He was a qualified butler. He was definitely first class in terms of etiquette. The old man with foreign blood took off the gentleman's hat on his head. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit and bowed in a standard manner. Mr. N, we meet again after so many years. You are still as elegant as before. Eric. Old Master N could almost call out his name at a glance. The assistant standing at the side had never seen his chairman like this. It was obvious that Old Master N was emotional. His hand that was holding onto the dragon head walking stick was trembling. You are still here. Not only am I still here, but young Lord is also here. He smiled very sincerely. One could see the feelings in it. It was as if they had met good friends. The assistant watched as the butler, who seemed to have walked out from the 19th century, walked to the chairman's side. To be honest, Mr. N, I came this time to help our young lord with something. Although Grandfather Butler did not have Chinese blood, when he spoke in Mandarin, his pronunciation was very good. It was just a little exotic. When young Lord was young, she was taken care of by Mr. N's family, especially young Master Chin. Young Lord has always remembered how well he treated young Lord. Although I haven't seen it with my own eyes, ever since young Lord moved away, almost all the topics were about young Master Chin. Now that they have grown up and are together again, I wonder if Mr. N's words from back then still count. The two families are on good terms. You are the one who wants to propose? Previously, Old Master N had only received a visit letter. He didn't know who the person was. He had wanted to ignore it. But when he thought about it, how could such a thing happen? Which family would mention the N family when proposing? They had mentioned his grandson. This was something that only a bear's heart and leopard's gall would do. But what Old Master N didn't expect was that his grandson had actually agreed to it after hearing about it. Agreed? This wasn't like him at all. In the past, he had always been indifferent when someone brought up this matter. Not to mention agreeing. As smart as Old Master N was, he immediately thought of something. His grandson knew the person who had written the visit letter. Otherwise, when he had received his grandson's call and asked him to come over to explain this matter, there wouldn't have been a smile in his voice. He still remembered his grandson's reaction when he heard the news. Really? He came to propose. Then he kept laughing. He kept laughing. It was so funny that even he, the grandfather, found it interesting. Hey, kid, are you feeling so good? At that time, his business partner was standing next to him and looking at him. Grandpa Ann's face was both helpless and happy. It had been a long time since he had seen his grandson like this. Just like a little kid. Yes, it's very beautiful. Grandfather, please agree for me. I'll be back soon. It was in the afternoon. It was already night time. The person who proposed marriage had arrived and revealed his true colors. However, Old Master N could never have imagined that it would be an old acquaintance. At this moment, he immediately understood. No wonder his grandson was so happy. When he picked up the call, he could clearly hear the faint smile on the other end of the line. So it was her. In that case, Grandpa N seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly reddened. My grandson's memory has returned, right? Along with his childhood memories. Grandpa N had always been a person who could control his emotions, but at this moment, he seemed to be completely unable to control himself. It was an indescribable feeling. His throat was blocked, and he couldn't say a word. Grandpa N could only use a light cough to relieve himself. It's really great. Yes, it's great. Perhaps only those who knew what the two children had experienced would sigh like this. The old butler smiled. Our young master values young Master Chin too much. This time, she insisted on following young Master Chin when he went to carry out his mission. After bringing young Master Chin back with injuries, she even hid him at home. You know, she has always treated young Master Chin like a treasure. I don't know what kind of agreement she made with them, but she just wants to keep young Master Chin. When Grandpa N heard this, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. So it was that child who brought him back. His grandson's mission had always been confidential. Even his powerful and influential grandfather didn't know about it. But the higher the level, the more dangerous it was. He also had business friends in the Golden Triangle who told him roughly what had happened. Grandpa N couldn't sleep for many days. He was afraid that his grandson had been among the flames that had exploded in the river back then. Later, when he couldn't contact his grandson no matter what, there was news from that side. It said that Er's emotions were very unstable. With the hypnosis activated, there was a high chance that he would become an internationally wanted criminal. He was as smart as he was dangerous. When Grandpa N heard the news, his heart was filled with bitterness. He was such an outstanding grandson. How could he fall to such a state? Was there no one who could trust him? At that time, Grandpa N went to the Chin family. Only then did he realize that it wasn't that he didn't trust him, but that there was already a substantial danger. Other than his biological parents, who dared to stay by his side. On the other hand, the soldiers he had brought out were clamoring to see their boss. But it was to no avail. Someone who could find him, protect him, and still choose to stay by his side at such a time. He heard that it was the Fu family. How did it become? Grandpa N frowned. Then the Fu family is, regarding this point. The old butler had already thought of an excuse before he came. After Master passed away, some organizations have been trying to destroy the balance in the hacker world or use hackers to do something. If young Lord disguised herself as a high school student, it would be easier for her to hide. She also knows that young Master Chin is in this city, so she came here. Grandpa N had seen the photos of the youngster on the internet. The more he looked at them, the closer he felt. Now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that he felt so close. Since that's the case, I have no reason to disagree. Grandpa N chuckled. But, Eric, you are wrong again. Here, the word, marriage proposal, is used by the man to the woman, not by the woman to the man. At this moment, the two of them had already sat down. The assistant handed them tea. The old butler took it elegantly and took a sip before saying, Mr. N, I am not wrong. This was all mentioned by young Lord. She said that she used all her pocket money to buy her little Princess Chin. Grandpa N also agreed at that time. She can't go back on her words now. Grandpa N paused. He didn't expect that after so many years, he would hear this sentence again. This made his mind immediately recall the scene when they had just arrived overseas. Words for the readers. Chapter 1402. Los Angeles, located in southwestern California, was the second largest city in the United States, often referred to as the City of Angels. The city was located in the Mediterranean climate zone, with a mild climate. Generally speaking, it was dry all year round with little rain, only slightly more rain in winter. The sun was bright all year round, and there was very little chance that the temperature would be below freezing point, so the chance of seeing snow was very rare. But on this day, it actually snowed in the city. The snow at night was especially beautiful, wrapping the trees in silver makeup. Especially the pumpkin car lights in the fence. The old European-style buildings, with warm lights and Christmas trees everywhere. There were also some people in fur coats hurrying by. They rarely had black hair, but they all had different colors of hair, white skin, and high noses. They looked like the magicians described in Harry Potter. When the scenery became a fairy tale. The people in the scenery were even more mysterious. Under the street lights, a Huaxia Hongqi car was parked outside the fence. It was rare to see this brand of car in this place. The car looked a little old-fashioned. But those who knew cars would understand. The more old-fashioned a Hongqi car was, the more valuable it was. No, it was not just valuable. It was more of a status symbol. After all, in that era, to be able to drive a Hongqi car and drive it to Losh was probably the only one who came from Ange. The car door was opened by a professional butler. The butler was still wearing high-quality white gloves. He was a young man with blonde hair. Even his words were in English. "Sir, we're here." The person in the car did not get out quickly. Instead, he turned his head and pointed out the window to the little boy beside him. "This is where we will live from now on. How about it? Do you like it?" The little boy was wearing a white down jacket with a hood. There was a circle of silver-white fur at the collar. He wore a black mask on his face. His face could not be seen clearly, only his voice could be heard. It was a little childish and a little cold. "Yes. Just one word." This was obviously a little too quiet for a 4- or 5-year-old boy. But the old man in the car seemed to be used to it. He reached out and rubbed the little boy's head. "Then, shall we get out?" "Okay." The little boy followed the butler down the stairs. He did not let the butler help him with his luggage. Instead, he held the handle of the small suitcase with one hand. This was the first time the foreign butler had seen such a polite and mysterious child. He looked down and said, "Wow, this box is really cute." The little boy followed his gaze and looked over as well. The little panda's suitcase. It didn't match his overall temperament. But things like suitcases. It had never been something a little boy could control. After all, he had a very girlish mother. At this time, the old man laughed. He didn't look like a grandfather at all, except for the white hair on his temples. "There's also an Asian kid living next door. Young master, you don't have to feel bored here. I'm sure you'll be able to get along well." The foreign butler thought the boy was being reserved. But when he looked sideways and saw the boy standing under the light, he immediately felt that he was thinking too much. He had never seen a boy like this. He obviously didn't have beautiful golden hair, but he was like a little prince. Standing there, he suddenly thought of a Huaxia poem he had learned, "Young master is like jade." His hair was like fine silk, so black that it was unforgettable. Although his face was covered, his eyes were very deep, as if they could sway the sky full of snow. Not to mention his long, dense, and slightly curly eyelashes, which gave people a sense of elegance. "Ah!" The foreign butler sighed again. Eastern children were really too good-looking. In fact, the foreign butler didn't know. He wasn't the only one who was addicted to this beauty. There was also someone who was studying her little keyboard. On this day, someone wanted to go out and play. But after thinking about it, there was nothing fun outside. It wasn't as fun as taking things apart. After all, she had beaten up all the children nearby. It was really not easy to find someone who was willing to play with her. For this, she was punished to stand. She agreed to stand. It was too boring to stand without anything in her hands. She simply hugged her little keyboard and stood obediently while admiring the rare snow scenery outside. There was even a tiger's tail behind her. She didn't expect that there was something more beautiful than the snow in this world. Could that person be Snow White? Someone searched for the fairy tale knowledge in his mind. He looked at his face. Then he looked at the little figure outside. It was Snow White and looked better than her, like a doll. The little suitcase was also very cute. That was a panda, right? It was something that only existed in Huaxia. She heard her father talk about it. It was really cute. Even the little princess's suitcase was cuter than hers. Thinking of this, someone looked at the small square in her hand in disdain. Well, it couldn't compare at all. The little boy standing in the snow still didn't know that he was being targeted and that the other party treated him as a princess. The word princess, to explain it in depth, was to treat him as a woman. The old man was probably afraid that the little boy wouldn't be used to it, so he took a step forward and patted his shoulder. Your parents will take you back soon. Andy also said that there is an Asian child next door. He is from Grandpa's friend's house. You don't need to be shy, that child will definitely get along well with you. Okay. When the little boy lowered his head, his eyelashes fell, forming a shadow. The old man couldn't understand his grandson's emotions. After all, this child had been like this since he was young. It was too worrisome. Go in. He was a little boy after all. He still let people hold his hand. But the little boy's eyes were still dark and calm. One hand was held by his grandfather, and the other hand was pulling the suitcase. They walked into the yard where they were about to start a new life. There was a strong American style everywhere. Ordinary children might like it very much. But the little boy was as usual and didn't show any expression of surprise. Even the pumpkin lantern car and cake in the yard didn't arouse his interest. The old man thought that it would be better to wait until tomorrow. He heard that the child next door was very lively. He hoped that he could inspire his grandson. Chapter 1403. Dad. This was the first time a certain someone called him. The man who was curled up on the sofa with a comic book covering his face ignored her. A certain someone ran over, stood still and flipped open the comic book. Mr. Bo, I need to tell you something. What is it? The man yawned lazily. He didn't look like a father at all. Did you break someone's glass or bully a child to tears? Little Bojio, I've told you many times, you have to be serious. I remember that you should be standing in front of the window and reflecting on your mistakes. I was thinking about it at first. Bojio had a serious expression. But my soul was hooked. The man smirked. His handsome face and black hair gave off an unruly vibe. I don't believe you. Dad, I think we should have a good talk. Bojio's eyes widened. Her little tiger's tail was still wagging. The man held his chin nonchalantly. Thank God, you finally have the awareness to have a good talk with me. What do you want to talk about? Talk about the children you beat up ever since you moved here. They are older than me, 3 years older. They aren't children, I'm the child. Bojio caressed her cat ears. It's a little embarrassing to talk about it. The man leaned back, his long and slender legs crossed. Embarrassed? You? Baby, you don't have this word. Tell me, what do you want? Bojio thought for a moment. She ran to the side and then ran back with a piggy bank in her hands. I want to buy something. You have to tell me about such a small matter. The man stood up, his fingers touching his daughter's piggy bank. Lord Gio, there seems to be the black card I gave you in there. When did his daughter become so generous? Bojio's little face was serious. It's expensive. Although she wasn't sure how much it was worth. But it looked quite expensive. Bojio glanced at the room next door. It was a pity that the little princess hadn't come out after entering. When the man heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Perhaps it was because he was too handsome and had a kind of evil aura. Even though he was wearing a white shirt, he still gave off a beautiful impact. You can ask your mother about this. I can't decide the family's money. Don't forget, I'm a man who lives off a woman. Sometimes, little Bojio admired her father. In front of her mother, he was like a little puppy. When her mother wasn't around. In the next second, he seemed to have changed into a completely different person. Her father said that this was a little secret between the two of them and that she couldn't tell her mother. Mom earned money to support the family, and they were responsible for acting cute. Little Bojio had no objections. Anyway, her father was already an adult and could still act cute. She was a 5-year-old child, so it was not a big deal for her to wear tiger pajamas. When is Mom coming back today? When Bojio asked, she poked her face. It was a little itchy. Her father had never been good at taking care of children. When he heard his daughter's question, his handsome face was filled with resentment. 11 p.m. Let's cook ourselves. Come, Lord Jio, let's play a game. Whoever loses will have to cook instant noodles. How about that? I'm not guessing. Bojio hugged her wallet. I'm still addicted to beauty and can't extricate myself. I'm not in the mood to cook noodles. Chapter 1404. Little Bojio ignored her father. She wasn't in the mood to eat, especially when she heard that her mother wasn't coming back. In the end, the man stood up and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. He glanced at the building outside and saw that the lights were on. He smiled. Lord Jio, dinner is settled. Your noodles taste terrible. I don't want to eat it. Bojio wasn't interested. The man stretched out his long legs and blocked his daughter's path. I'm not cooking. Bring the fruit platter on the table. We'll be guests next door and freeload. Next door. Bojio's eyes lit up when she heard this word. She quickly placed the fruits into the box. It wasn't right to give a fruit platter as a display gift. Even though her father was still smiling and emphasizing, that's a friend of mine who came from China despite the age gap. Bojio was still angry. That was the little princess's house. How could she just freeload? Why are you walking by yourself? The man had quit smoking ever since he had his daughter. He was wearing a mask and a black down jacket. He was so young and handsome that people would think he was a big brother. Come over and carry me. Bojio held the piggy bank in one hand and the fruit platter in the other. She looked him up and down and said seriously, I want to walk by myself. I want to give the new neighbor a good impression of being sensible and obedient. Our Lord Jio has really grown up. The man smiled again and put his hand back into his pocket. He strolled behind the little tiger, giving off an indifferent feeling. The tall and short pair seemed to have walked out of a British comic. They didn't seem like people from real life. He could faintly hear the conversation between the two of them. When your mom comes back, don't tell her that we're freeloading next door. Why? Mom will be happy if she knows that someone from the same hometown is here. Why? I can't even cook instant noodles. Don't I care about my reputation? MMH? Mr. Bo, it's embarrassing enough that you're living off a woman. You think I won't beat you up just because you're young and a girl? Yes. Bojio wagged her little tiger tail. Mr. Bo looked at the mop and raised one hand. His voice was lazy and his side profile was very handsome in the snow. TSK, little girl, your skin is a little thick. It's hereditary. Bojio turned with a serious expression. I inherited it from you. Mr. Bo didn't think much of it. That's why you're doing so well. Alright, I'm going to press the doorbell. Please remember your persona. A conversation between father and daughter. He didn't expect to be overheard. The one who heard the conversation was the little boy who had brought the sled in from the side door. It was too cold outside, but he didn't wear a jacket. It was probably just a casual action. The little boy didn't like to eavesdrop. Rather than saying that he didn't like it, it would be more accurate to say that he didn't care what others said. Even so, he paused for a moment as he picked up the sled. After all, the conversation between the father and daughter was different from ordinary people. The little boy had never interacted with a father and daughter like this before, so he couldn't help but raise his eyes and glance at them. But it was only a matter of a glance. Very quickly, he closed the door. He looked at his grandfather, who wasn't far away, instructing the butler to prepare for tonight's dinner. He asked him how well he wanted the steak. The little boy was thinking about whether he should tell his grandfather that there were two people standing outside. In the next second, the doorbell rang. The doorbell rang. It was still snowing outside. Old Masterin was still wondering who would come at this time. The butler had already walked over. "Sir, do you want to open the door?" Old Masterin nodded. The butler walked over and pulled open the silver door handle with his slender fingers. Big snowflakes poured in along with the whistling north wind. An adult and a child appeared outside the door just like that. It was probably because the pajamas the little one was wearing were too eye-catching. Old Masterin saw a little tiger at first glance. Her pure black eyes were filled with intelligence as she looked inside. Her ears drooped down like a curly-eared cat. She was cute and handsome. Not to mention the slender man standing behind her. There was a faint smile on his lips. Against the moonlight, he didn't look old at all. He was as bright as the stars but with a hint of evil. "Mr. Andre, long time no see." Old Masterin's eyes lit up. "Brother Bo, come in, come in." Little Bojio's eyes started to turn as she listened to the adult's greetings. Where was her little princess? Why didn't she see him? Just as she was thinking about this, Old Masterin spoke. Old Masterin said, "Mo, come over and take a look at your little friend." Mo. This was the second mistake. The smart little Bojio thought that little princesses were usually very shy, so they were given a name like Mo. Hence, she was even more certain that the person she saw outside the window was a girl. Little Bojio was so confident that she confirmed the gender of her little princess. It wasn't a fantasy at all. When she saw the figure walking towards her again, she was even more confident. The other party was wearing small panda slippers but his pants were tight, sticking to his slender and straight calves. It was very pleasing to the eye. Moreover, he had taken off his jacket. The bright red sweater inside was like the maple leaves she had seen before. However, his skin was like the white snow that had just fallen outside. His eyes were as bright as the stars and his eyelashes were so long that even though they were so far away, the length of his pure black hair could still be seen clearly. He stood there, his black hair like splashed ink. The noble aura that came along with it reappeared in Bojio's eyes. The north wind blew again, responding to the bonfire inside the house and the Christmas tree outside the house. Snowflakes floated over and one of them landed on the boy's shoulder. He tilted his head and blew it gently before looking over politely. She didn't know why but little Bojio felt that his gaze was too cold. However, this coldness didn't dampen little Bojio's enthusiasm. The fairy tale book said that there were many types of princesses. The one she met today definitely looked cold but in reality, she was easily shy. She had to control herself later. She couldn't be too frivolous. She couldn't beat William like she did previously. She had to be patient with the little princess and speak in a gentle voice. Since she had brought her piggy bank back, she felt more confident. Anyway, she didn't want to scare him away. She had never felt that there was anyone who looked so good. The one in front of her. She wanted to bring him home as a pet. However, her dad had once said that if she saw something she liked, she had to buy it home. She couldn't take it for free. It was the same on the internet. Hence, little Bojio's first reaction when she saw the little princess was to hug her piggy bank. Chapter 1405. Ever since just now. This little customer had been staring at him. Chin Mo glanced down from the stair and met with a pair of distinct black and white eyes. What made him pause slightly was that those eyes seemed to only have him in them. Under the light, he saw himself in her eyes. Her eyes were quite big. This was Chin Mo's only thought. She didn't look like someone who had spoken so much just now. It seemed like she was pretending to be obedient now. He had never seen anyone pretending to be obedient like this. She looked at him unscrupulously. Chin Mo wanted to take a step forward. The child first greeted his grandfather. "Hello, Grandpa." Then she ran in front of him and pushed the piggy bank in her hands forward. Her tiger tail was still wagging. "Momo, how much are you per kilo?" "I'll buy you." "Buy him? How much was he per kilo?" Chin Mo frowned uncontrollably. He looked at the smiling face in front of him and took a step back. He didn't know why, but he had a premonition that his nightmare was coming. On the other hand, Mr. Bo laughed mischievously. "Master Joe, you're amazing. I was wondering what you were interested in. It turns out that you were interested in your new little friend. Momo is so cute." "It's normal for me to be interested in you," little Bojo said. She turned her head over with a serious expression. Her ears moved. "It's a little shy to talk about it. Momo, can you promise me that I will treat you very, very well?" "Cute?" When he heard this adjective, Chin Mo's little face turned slightly cold. Did this fellow misunderstand something? "Cute, ha ha ha." Grandpa laughed loudly. "This is the first time I heard someone say that my Mo is cute." Little Bojo widened her clear eyes. "Didn't anyone say that in the past? That's strange. A little princess like Momo would definitely be liked by many people." "Little princess." Chin Mo couldn't help but speak. At that time, he was still young and his voice wasn't as threatening as it was now. It even had the childish voice of a 5-year-old. Even though it was cold, it wasn't as imposing as before. Grandpa was stunned for a moment before he laughed even louder. Even though he knew that his grandson was outstanding, this was the first time he was treated like a little girl by a little friend. The man had a rough idea of what his daughter had done. He laughed sinisterly. "It seems like our Master Gio really likes Mo, very." After little Bojo said this word, to show her seriousness, she looked straight at Chin Mo's face. Words for the readers, new book introduction. 3 years ago, the Supreme Alliance disintegrated. The gaming genius, Mo Bay, went into hiding. 3 years later, she disguised herself as a man and returned with her name hidden. She went from being spurned to ascending the altar again, causing the whole nation to be excited. He was handsome and had countless fans. Everyone in the esports circle knew him. When she first joined the team, he told her, "Behave yourself and don't have any improper thoughts." After her identity was exposed, he looked up from the table and stood up slowly. "Do you want to abandon me after getting married in the game?" "MMH?" The voice beside her ears made her feel guilty. "What else do you think I should do?" Chapter 1406. Chin Mo told himself not to be calculative with someone younger than him. He took a deep breath, lifted his legs, and was about to walk to the dining table. Who knew that the person with the big eyes would suddenly pounce on him? Before Chin Mo could react, he was pushed to the ground by her. Her little tiger claws could be seen. She scratched her head in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Momo, I didn't expect you to be so weak. I'll control my strength next time and won't be so fierce." "Who told you about controlling your strength and being weak?" "Him." This time, Chin Mo didn't even want to breathe. But this person was like a little heater, making him want to pull her collar and throw her out. But she was too young. Her eyes were so big that it was annoying. "Get up." His tone was cold. Bojo tilted her head, her tiger tail wagging. "Okay." She was very obedient. This made Old Master laugh even more heartily. But he couldn't be too enthusiastic. His grandson couldn't stand it. Old Master pulled the little tiger to the side. Come, Jill, sit down and eat something. With the beauty in front of her, Bojo had forgotten that she and her father were here for a free meal. But after Old Master N's words, she remembered the purpose of their visit. She wagged her tiger tail and sat down with Old Master N. Her father had once said that Chinese people got to know each other at the dining table. After the meal, Momo wouldn't be as shy as she was now. Qin Mo saw her round eyes staring at him. He tidied his clothes and sat down in front of the dining table according to basic etiquette. He thought that after the meal, he wouldn't have to see this little tiger that affected his emotions. But the moment he sat down, the little tiger used her two small hands to move the chair towards him. Then she sat back down. Let's be closer, we can have a private conversation. Qin Mo's side profile was cold. He was naturally arrogant, like a little prince. He didn't want to speak. Bojo tilted her head. Momo, did I tell you that you're very pretty? You're the first. Every word you say makes me want to throw you out. Bojo's eyes lit up. I have good taste. Qin Mo smirked. He had changed his mind. This little tiger really needed a beating. Yes, you have good taste. Qin Mo couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. He held the knife in his hand, and when he cut the steak, he used his strength subtly. On the surface, he looked noble and polite. Bojo didn't realize what she was thinking and continued to drink the water happily. Mr. Bo, who saw everything, only felt that it was interesting. He didn't intend to expose her. Instead, he picked up the wine glass in his hand and shook it twice. His movements were casual and elegant, making him look like a character that only appeared in movies. He had only taken one bite of the steak. Then, the phone beside him rang. It was a nursery rhyme. Every time this nursery rhyme was heard, Mr. Bo would be busy. This time was no exception. But he wasn't in a hurry. After taking a look, he smiled and said to Old Master N, Mr. N, I have something urgent to attend to. I might need to trouble you to take care of my Lord Joe. Old Master N smiled faintly. Don't mention it. Go and do what you need to do. Joe can get to know Mo better here. Thank you. The man stood up and wore his trench coat. He freed one hand and caressed Bojo's head. His back view as he walked out was completely different from when he came. At this moment, he seemed to be able to blend perfectly into the night. Even his eyes had turned from lazy to cold like the wind. Not to mention the evil aura that surged out when he lowered his eyes. Bojo watched him leave and then retracted her gaze. Unexpectedly, she was a little listless. This wasn't within Qin Mo's expectations. He realized that he didn't like the way the little tiger drooped her ears. Old Master N noticed it too. He smiled and said, Joe, don't be restrained. After dinner, Mo will bring you upstairs to play. Can I? The little tiger perked up again. A pair of bright eyes turned to look at Qin Mo. Qin Mo paused and replied faintly, MMH, he was troubled because if he didn't agree, the little tiger would cry in front of him. Forget it. If that was the case, he might as well agree. Momo, you're such a good person. Bojo reached out and wanted to hug him. Qin Mo frowned. His little face was cold. You better keep your tiger claws. Don't force me to change my mind. Bojo looked at her hand and then at the little princess sitting beside her. She suddenly understood. Momo, I know that in China, men and women shouldn't touch each other and can't be too passionate. But don't worry, I'm a girl too. Hee, you're a girl and I'm not. There's no need to add. Qin Mo couldn't be bothered to talk to the little tiger anymore. He just wanted to finish his steak and go upstairs to read. At this point, the little tiger sitting beside him seemed to know her place. She didn't give him any more trouble. She sat at the side seriously and didn't need anyone to cut the steak for her. Even though it was a little difficult to cut the steak with her clothes on, she didn't say anything. The more Chin Mo looked at her, the more annoyed he felt. He reached out and took her plate. He moved the knife and fork. At such a young age, she already had good dining etiquette. Bo Jiu paused. When she looked at the little princess who was cutting the steak for her, the corners of her lips couldn't help but lift. The little princess looked good even when he was cutting the steak. He wasn't as rough as her at all. Chin Mo moved his fingers. His voice was a little cold. Don't look at me. Oh. Bo Jiu didn't look at him at first. But after a while, she couldn't help but turn her head. Momo, if I save more money, can you sell yourself to me? Chin Mo placed his knife and fork down. He opened his eyes and glanced at her. You better not ask me this question in the future. Is it because I don't have enough money? Bo Jiu hugged the piggy bank and shook it. Chin Mo felt that it was childish to argue with an idiot. He pushed the tray in his hand forward and replied calmly, he didn't know that his perfunctory nonchalance had become something that the other party cared about. Then I'll save more money. When Bo Jiu became serious, she didn't forget to scratch herself with her claws. Chin Mo glanced at her face. Being a germaphobe, he couldn't help it. He reached out and pushed the hair beside her ear to the side so that he could clean his eyes. He told himself that today was the only day. Once today was over. Chapter 1407. Bo Jiu didn't know what the little princess she liked was thinking. But he was even willing to cut the steak for her. Her little princess should have already accepted her. This was a good thing for Bo Jiu. In the past, too many people were frightened by her rudeness. The little princess was good, she didn't care about this at all. Actually, Bo Jiu probably couldn't understand what Chin Mo was concerned about. The steak was delicious. It was much better than instant noodles. Bo Jiu wore a small scarf as she ate. She had a carefree elegance that other children didn't have. Even though it was difficult to cut the steak, she still had manners when it came to the dining table. Especially when it came to waiting for the elders. It was the same as Chin Mo. Both of them waited for old master and to eat first before they started eating. When they put down the knife and fork, the elders would put it down first. Because of this, Grandpa liked the little tiger in front of him very much. Moreover, the way she ate, her cheeks were puffed up, giving him a sense of accomplishment when he fed her. She was a completely different type from his grandson. Chin Mo watched from the side as the person ate until her stomach was full. He calmly drank a mouthful of water. She was indeed here to freeload. This trip wasn't in vain. Bo Jiu didn't know that the little princess had heard the conversation between her and her father. When she saw that he was full, she put down her knife and fork, hugged her little piggy bank, and followed. The tiger's tail was still wagging. Old master watched this scene and felt gratified. His daughter was in the career stage and his son-in-law was in the military. It was indeed beneficial for his grandson to follow him out. But at the same time, he was always worried that his childhood would be incomplete. Now, it seemed like there was a little tiger accompanying him in a foreign country. Perhaps, it would more or less ease his mind. Even though his grandson had a look of resistance on his face. But resisting was better than not saying anything at all. But that little tiger was interesting. Why did she treat his grandson as a girl? Old master laughed again. He was probably too happy. Even when he went to the study for a video conference, he asked the butler to open a bottle of red wine. On the other side, little Bo Jiu was walking up the stairs. She took the opportunity to observe the surrounding terrain and instantly felt elated. Momo, our windows are facing each other. My room is opposite you. Chin Mo glanced at her and said, don't touch anything. You can eat the snacks on the table but don't disturb my reading. Under normal circumstances. According to the other party's personality. He was certain that he would not be able to meet these requirements. When he opened a book and read for half an hour, he was about to pour himself a glass of water. That person was still hugging his little piggy bank and sitting there quietly. His eyes were big, and he didn't eat the snacks on the table. After drinking the water, Chin Mo was just about to start reading when a small heater came over to him. His fingers paused as he flipped through the book. He narrowed his eyes and turned his head to see the little tiger's sleepy expression. She probably realized that she had bumped into someone. Bojo suddenly woke up and shook her head. Momo, I'm a little tired. I'll go home and sleep first. I'll come and play with you tomorrow. As he spoke, he jumped off the chair. Even his steps were a little shaky. Chin Mo glanced at the lights next door that hadn't been turned on. Then he looked at the back view of the little tiger in front of him. He frowned and then said, Mr. Bo isn't back yet. MMH? Bojo didn't understand what he meant. Chin Mo picked up the book in his hands. When the lights are turned on, I'll get the butler to send you back. There's a small sofa over there. Go and lie down for a while. Okay. Compared to going home to sleep, Bojo was more willing to stay where the little princess was. She was afraid that she would disturb the little princess's reading. But it was her nature. Before she fell asleep, she wanted to talk. Momo, what are you reading? Bojo moved her head over. Chin Mo replied, Little Prince. After that, he didn't speak again. He left her on the sofa because she was too young. He didn't have any intention of befriending her. Bojo sensed his coldness as well. Her tail swayed and she started to doze off again. When Chin Mo noticed her head leaning over for the second time, he frowned. He knew that with this little tiger around, he wouldn't be able to read at all. But at this moment, Grandpa pushed the door open and walked in. When he saw this scene, he was stunned. After all, his grandson had never been so close to any child before. Then he laughed softly. Joe, it's too late. Can you stay here tonight? Bojo perked up when she heard this. Okay. After a night's sleep, the little princess would get closer to her. Unlike now, when he was always cold and indifferent and a little prickly. Bojo lowered her head and looked at her little tiger's paws. Her excited expression was a stark contrast to the cold Chin Mo sitting beside her. Chin Mo didn't know what his grandfather was thinking. His grandfather should know that he didn't like to keep other children at home. But when he turned his head, the lights outside weren't turned on yet. The smell of milk on a certain little tiger was very strong. This meant that she was really small. Even if she was the same age as him. Girls and boys were also different. She shouldn't be that strong. Chin Mo turned his head. He thought for a moment and resisted the urge to object. Everything was because she was still young. He couldn't let her carry a small piggy bank back. It was snowing outside. There wasn't a single person there. Anyway, it was just one night. Tomorrow, he would tell his grandfather. He didn't need any little friends. I'll get the butler to prepare a small guest room for our adorable Joe, Old Master said as he looked towards the door. Bojo shook her head. She was very serious. Don't trouble Grandpa and Momo and I will sleep in the same room. We are both girls and there is a small sofa here. When Chin Mo heard this, he started to frown. That little face of his turned cold. What did she mean by both of them were girls? This idiot, couldn't she see clearly? Old Master couldn't help but smile. This was the first time he saw his grandson show so many expressions on the same day. Suddenly, he felt that this wasn't bad. His grandson had never slept in the same room with anyone before. He could give it a try. Okay. Old Master caressed the little tiger's head. Then you can squeeze with Mo. Chin Mo didn't expect his grandfather to say this. He was about to reject. But just then, someone hugged his waist. Then, the little tiger smiled. 2 little tiger teeth were revealed. The mole at the corner of her eyes was at the corner of her eyes. She looked at him with big eyes. Then. Chapter 1408. The little Chin Mo froze. When the side of his face touched the softness, he even forgot to push the little tiger away. His nose was filled with the scent of milk and candy. His eyes slowly widened. He didn't seem to want to accept this scene. But he couldn't stop it. His fingers froze. Old Master froze when he saw his grandson's expression. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. The little tiger was really daring, kissing him as soon as she came up. Speaking of which, this was the first time his grandson was kissed. It didn't count when he was born. But after he could remember, he hadn't been kissed by anyone else. After all, when they were in the courtyard, children of the same age felt that his grandson was too mature. He wouldn't do such an intimate action. After all, his grandson had been a clean freak since he was young. However, when Grandpa saw his grandson's shocked expression, he couldn't help but smile uncontrollably. The little tiger didn't know what she had done. She reached forward with her claws and hooked Chin Mo's ears. Momo, are you shy because I kissed you? Is that why your ears are so red? Don't be shy, we still have to sleep together later. Chin Mo didn't think much of it at first, but when she touched him, he realized that they were too close. He reached out and tugged her tail, his voice cold. Who wants to sleep with you? It was fine if this little tiger didn't know whether it was a man or a woman, but she kissed anyone she saw. Didn't she know what it meant to be reserved? Bojo blinked in confusion. Her little face started to sink, even her tiger ears drooped. If you don't welcome me, I'll go back and sleep. I'll look for you tomorrow. At first, Chin Mo didn't say anything. He watched as she hugged the piggy bank. Then, he looked at the falling snow and the dark night. Chin Mo tilted his face. I won't go back on my promise. Since grandfather said you can stay, you can stay. Really? Bojo's ears perked up again. She almost shook her tiger tail. You promised to sleep with me. Once again, Chin Mo told himself that everything was because she was still young. You'll sleep on the sofa and I'll sleep on the bed. We have no intention of sleeping together. Chin Mo corrected the little tiger who had only been here for 6 hours and had already messed up his rhythm of life. Don't talk nonsense and stay away from me. Maintain a 1 meter distance. 1 meter. Bojo placed the piggy bank down and gestured. She pouted, looking slightly listless. So far. Why? I can't even touch you. Chin Mo smirked. At such a young age, he had already developed his aura. Before asking me why, shouldn't you look at your own behavior first? Behavior? Little Bojo didn't understand. After thinking for a long time, she asked shyly, is it because I'm too strong? Chin Mo didn't want to speak. What did this have to do with strength? I know. The fairy tales say that princesses are all made of water. When I hug you in the future, I'll use less strength. After all, you're so small and weak. Who knows, I might hurt you. Little Bojo was rather serious when she said this. She even reflected on her actions in annoyance. She didn't know that at this moment, Chin Mo only had one thought in his mind. He wanted to pick her up and throw her out of the window. Princesses are all made of water. Small? Weak? Him. Chin Mo reached out and pinched her claws. He inhaled deeply. You better shut up now. Bojo heard this and replied happily, okay. Because of the word, good, Chin Mo couldn't even finish his sentence. The mixed-blood handsome face with the aura of an angel turned even darker. He was still cold and dignified, but there was anger. Old Masterin, who had been observing the interaction between the two little people, was really amused. He felt that this trip abroad was probably the right choice. After all, who would have imagined that his grandson would say so many words and make so many expressions in a day? He even suffered because of a little child. He was enduring something all the time, probably because the little tiger was too young. His grandson wouldn't be so calculative when compared to his younger self. But this wasn't entirely right. After all, when he was over there, there were people younger than him. They had seen him like this before. Perhaps it was because the little tiger in front of him hugged him too passionately. Even though he was watching from the side, he felt that he couldn't push away that kind of hug. It seemed like his grandson had met a little devil. Fortunately, the little devil was very obedient. She hugged her little piggy bank and followed behind his grandson. She didn't say anything when he told her not to. She even passed a glass of water to his grandson. She used her actions to express that she would take good care of him. Don't ask old Master and why he felt this way. It was because this was the expression the little tiger gave people. Why was it so cute? He really wanted to reach out and rub it. Especially the way she looked at his grandson with her big eyes. If he was his grandson, he would have rubbed it long ago. His grandson was good. He really made the little tiger stay away from him. Then, she turned to look at him. Old Master couldn't help but laugh. He knew that his grandson was saying, "Grandfather, when are you going to watch the show?" He held the dragon head walking stick and shook it. "Grandfather has something to do. If you want to eat supper, let the butler cook for you. There is warm milk outside and a lot of snacks." Okay. After all, he hadn't grown up yet. He still had an obedient side. The little Chin Mo took a step forward and said to Old Master, "Grandfather, good night." Old Master wanted to continue watching, but considering his grandson's intelligence, he decided to let the two little people develop freely. But looking at his grandson, he seemed to only want to tolerate the little tiger for one night. Bojio followed Chin Mo to bid good night to Old Master. Unlike the other girls who were soft and cute, she was a little fierce. "Momo, I didn't do it on purpose. Actually, it's good that you're short. It's okay for a girl to be short since you're so cute and pretty. But if you really want to grow taller, you can drink more milk. I'll give my cup to you as well." Grandpa nodded. "Momo, you're so cute and pretty. But if you really want to grow taller, you can drink more milk. I'll give my cup to you." "It's fine." Chin Mo didn't control his strength again, snapping his favorite mimosa plant. Bojio lowered her head and looked at her toes, not knowing what to do. Chin Mo inhaled deeply. After taking the glass of milk, he instantly felt a headache. Why did he have to worry about the little tiger when he was treated as a girl? If he was too cold, the little tiger would feel hurt. It was probably because her face was too deceiving. With this thought, Chin Mo finished the milk and reached out to pinch her face. He didn't use much strength because the feeling was out of his expectations. It was tender and smooth like egg pudding. It was too soft and he couldn't bear to touch it. Chin Mo tilted his head and retracted his hand. Forget it, it wasn't enough for one night anyway. Bojio watched as her little princess walked into the bathroom. Before leaving, the little princess touched her face. It must be because she was too likable. Even the little princess couldn't help but feel itchy. With this thought, little Bojio started to plan seriously how to make the little princess like her more. After all, it was too difficult to bring her home. The little princess was too troublesome. And she was easily shy. Bojio tilted her eyes. Her dad had never told her what to do if the other party was too shy. Chin Mo, who was about to wash up, didn't know what the little tiger was thinking. After closing the door, he looked at himself in the mirror. His hands seemed to still feel the touch just now. Also, what was with the milk smell all over his body? It must be because she carried him out. Chin Mo squeezed out the toothpaste. His cold little face had a different expression again. The little tiger was a little bored waiting outside. In addition, she suddenly thought of a good way to quickly improve her relationship with the little princess. She bent down and placed the piggy bank on the sofa. Then, she ran to the drawer and took out a small scarf. In fact, when she saw this, Bojo sighed. The little princess was really clean. He was completely different from her. Her scarves had never been folded so neatly before. She just threw it casually. Because of this, her dad always made her reflect on herself. In the past, little Bojo always felt that her dad was deliberately looking for trouble. After all, that person always lost to her in rock paper scissors. William, who lived next door, was even more casual than her. Now, it seemed that she was too ignorant. Everything in the little princess's house was square and fragrant. There were also many books. Little Bojo compared and looked at herself. She felt that she was full of flaws. But she didn't intend to change. However, she had to pay more attention to her hygiene in the future. If not, the little princess would throw her out like trash. After little Bojo told herself this, she started to struggle with her little tiger pajamas. This set of pajamas was originally bought by her dad. He was in charge of acting cute for her mom. The claws, ears, and tail all needed help when she put on the pajamas. It took a lot of effort to take it off. A normal 5-year-old wouldn't be able to take it off. But we must believe that our little tiger Lord Joe is different. If she couldn't do it manually, she would use the rolling technique. She gritted her teeth and pulled, nimbly and handsomely escaping. She took the little scarf and prepared to give the little princess a surprise in the bathroom. Since they were going to sleep together. Of course, they had to shower together. That way, their intimacy would increase continuously. Bojo felt that she was too smart to think of such an idea. Before she entered, she didn't forget to give herself a thumbs up in the mirror. The little young Master Chin, who had already taken off his clothes, didn't notice the little tiger's thoughts outside the door. He thought that she was starting to doze off again since she didn't make a sound. He sat in the small bathtub that his grandfather had specially made for him. After lying down, he covered his forehead with a towel. His black hair was a little wet, making his red lips and white teeth appear even more prominent. Even his eyes were watery. No wonder little Bojo treated young Master Chin Mo as a girl. This appearance was really enough to put the moon and flowers to shame. This was probably related to Chin Mo's natural noble and immortal aura. But at this moment, he could still see that he was a boy. But he was still brought up since young. Not only did he do everything himself, but he was also very presentable. He reached out to get some shower gel. Just as he was about to apply it on his arms, the door opened with a creak. Little tiger, no, that's not right, he shouldn't call her little tiger anymore. Because that person wasn't wearing her pajamas. She was wearing a little white scarf and walking towards him. Chin Mo suddenly had a very bad feeling. He looked at the little person who shouldn't be here, his little brows furrowing bit by bit. Suddenly, Chin Mo had a very bad feeling. He looked at the little person who shouldn't be here, his little brows furrowing bit by bit. Momo, let's take a bath together. I'll help you wash up. Bojo took off her scarf. She was wearing a pair of tiger underpants, her snow-white body like a ball. She was about to enter the bathtub. Chin Mo's upbringing had taught him that there was a difference between men and women since he could remember. His IQ was twice that of his peers, not to mention his psychological state. Being precocious didn't just mean that he was out of line with his peers, it also meant that he had never been so close to anyone before. Now that someone was about to enter, his entire body froze once again. Don't come in. In a moment of desperation, Chin Mo could only throw out this sentence. Bojo looked at his red ears, a look of realization on her face. She then said considerately, Momo, you're shy again. Didn't I say just now that we're both girls? Even though I'm taller than you and my hair is shorter than yours, I'm really a girl. If you don't believe me, come closer, you can take a closer look. Little, old, tiger. Chin Mo looked at the leg that wasn't retracting. Instead, it was moving closer. He completely regretted his soft-heartedness just now. Bojo didn't realize this and corrected him seriously. Momo, I'm not called Little Tiger, I'm called Bojo. Bo as in Bojo and Jio as in Bojo. It's very handsome. In such a situation, it was hard to remember a person's name. Chin Mo's breath was slightly suppressed. Bo, little Jio, try to come closer. I won't go closer. I'll just sit beside you. As for you, Momo, if you continue to hide, your neck will be submerged and you will drink dirty water. There are too many bubbles in the water and your stomach will hurt. Actually, you don't have to be so reserved. I know you aren't used to it after coming overseas. My dad said that people in our country are very reserved. Actually, I'm the same. Oh. He really couldn't tell how the person in front of him was reserved. Fortunately, there was milk in the tub. Otherwise, she would have seen everything about him. Chin Mo told himself not to be calculative with an idiot. Chapter 1409. Once again, Chin Mo froze. This time, both his hands and legs froze. He had never seen such an expression on his face before. However, the one who had done the deed didn't seem to care. She leaned back and splashed the water in the bathtub on herself. Her fair and tender little face was slightly red from the steam. She looked soft and satisfied. Momo, the water in your bathtub smells so good. Is it because you put milk in it? No wonder you're so white. It's because of the milk bath. Princesses are different. It's comfortable to take a bath like this, right? Chin Mo suppressed the urge to ask her what she meant by being a princess. He just wanted to stay away from her. It was best if they didn't have any more contact. Bojo could see his resistance. She didn't understand. Momo, there has to be a limit to your shyness. I'm already so far away from you. You'll fall if you take another step back. With that, she started to move. Chin Mo opened his mouth. Even though his voice wasn't as threatening as when he grew up, it was still a warning. Don't come over. Bojo raised her hands. Her meaning was clear. She would listen to whatever he said. Don't be so resistant. Chin Mo's current state of mind was obvious. He took a step back. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted towards this little tiger. If he was given another chance, he would definitely throw her out. He wouldn't care if her house was dark or not. Bojo didn't know what the pet she wanted to bring home was thinking. Anyway, she just had to think of a way to increase their intimacy. Bojo tilted her head. She thought about it seriously and smiled sweetly. Momo, let me help you wipe your back. I'm good at it. It's fine, Chin Mo rejected in the next second. This was the first time Bojo met such an unapproachable little kid. Sigh, he was pretty. Bojo told herself. She splashed some water on herself. That wasn't all. In order to make herself look as clean as the little princess, she turned her body and placed some shower gel in her palms. Children of this age wouldn't even bathe themselves very neatly. Bojo was the same. She was slightly clumsy. She wiped her arms and legs as though she had completed a great project. From start to end, Chin Mo could only watch from the side. Furthermore, he was using his peripheral vision. In order to avoid seeing things that they shouldn't see, he had already intentionally shifted his gaze elsewhere. Now, the little tiger had settled down. But he couldn't stay here forever. Chin Mo couldn't get up. Once he did, he would be in an awkward situation. No matter how mature young Master Chin was, he was still a child. In this aspect, he cared a lot. However, there was one thing about young Master Chin, he was raised from a young age. No matter what kind of situation they were in, he was able to maintain his nobility and was not anxious or impatient. It seemed like he could only wait for this stupid little tiger to finish bathing before he could get up and go out. This was the only solution he could think of. Otherwise, he couldn't just stand up and let everyone see his naked body. However, he was really an idiot. At this point, she couldn't even tell if he was a man or a woman. He only knew how to play with water. Chapter 14:10. Momo, I'm done. You should be done too, right? Little Bojo twisted the scarf in her hand. Do you want me to wipe your hair before we head out together? Chin Mo took a deep breath. He knew that she wouldn't be content with her actions. No need. You can leave first. Bojo glanced over at his face, which was already covered in a thin layer of sweat due to the heat. At this moment, Chin Mo was extremely good-looking. Her thin lips were like flower petals. Her facial features were as delicate as a doll's. Her black hair was also wet from the water and stuck softly to the back of her ears. Bojo's heart itched. He really wanted to hug her. No, he had to restrain himself. It would be bad if he scared the little princess. However, the little princess did not seem to be in the right state. He looked as if he was about to faint from the heat. Bojo was smart. Once she realized this, she took a huge step forward. Chin Mo also noticed that he had stayed in the bathtub for too long. His breathing was unstable, but he wasn't so weak that he would faint. But Bojo didn't think so. Her heart ached for her pet. Momo, are you out of breath now? The last time I went to the snow mountain with my dad to soak in the hot spring, I was also like this. Don't be afraid, I'll carry you out now. Carry him out. Hug. How could Chin Mo agree? When Bojo saw the little princess's expression, she knew that he was going to be shy again. This time, he didn't even give her a chance to reject. With a ferocious movement, he directly picked up the seemingly weak young Master Chin from the bathtub. Whoosh! Water splashed everywhere. At that moment, Chin Mo's eyes widened. He had really underestimated the little tiger's ability to cause trouble. Bojo wanted to show off her strength as a boyfriend. After all, in order to gain the little princess's trust, she had to straighten her back and carry him out. However, the moment she picked Momo up, Momo's expression changed. She seemed to have seen something she shouldn't have. That looks like... Bojo was in a daze. She looked at the person in her arms, then at his face, and then back at herself. He suddenly understood something. Her little brain suddenly had an epiphany. There was another splash of water. Bojo released him. The two people returned to the bathtub. Chin Mo's face was full of water. Bojo was the same. However, the latter was rather guilty. He looked around with his round tiger eyes. Momo, do you believe me? This is all a misunderstanding. From the beginning to the end, it was all a misunderstanding. Chin Mo didn't want to talk at all. His little face was so cold that he looked like a little prince. Bojo raised her right hand, lying through her teeth. I didn't see anything. Chin Mo smirked. Didn't I see your hand slip? This was not easy to explain. Even if the 5-year-old little Bojo was full of tricks, she couldn't bring herself to play tricks on him after seeing him naked. However, who would have thought that such a beautiful little princess would be a man? How could it be a man? Bojo felt indignant. His small body moved towards the other side. He sensed her intentions. Chin Mo narrowed his eyes and warned, Little Bojo. I just wanted to confirm. Little Bojo touched the back of her head, looking rather embarrassed. You still want to confirm such things? Chapter 14:11. Anyway, this day had been a nightmare for him. And the source of the devil was this little tiger. Since she had seen everything, Chin Mo didn't care anymore. He pulled a scarf over and wrapped it around his neck. He was about to go out. It was too awkward. Little Bojo drooped her ears and explained seriously, Momo, I've never recognized the wrong person before. It must be because you're too good-looking and your name sounds very cute. After Chin Mo had something on him, he wasn't as passive as he was in the bathtub. He pulled the person's hand over. He lowered his eyes and his side profile was cold. He wrote on her little palm with a little force. But in the end, it was a waste of young Master Chin's good calligraphy. After he finished writing, the person's round tiger eyes were filled with confusion. Momo, did you write Chinese characters just now? You have so many strokes. Chin Mo finally knew that this little tiger wasn't just stupid. She was also illiterate. Pulling the man along, he strolled to the desk, took out a book at random, and wrote 2 words. Chin Mo, he pointed at it, his black hair still dripping with water. Remember this is my real name. Mo as in, desert dust. Amazing. Bojo's praise was sincere. The little princess was indeed a little princess. Her handwriting was so beautiful. So it was this Mo. She reached out and touched it. There were a lot of strokes. Fortunately, she had a good memory. She could remember it after just one look. Chin Mo watched as the little tiger reached out to touch her name. For some reason, her fingers paused. Then, she closed the book. Now you should know the difference between a man and a woman. So, Chin Mo reached out and pointed at the small sofa behind her. Sleep there. Don't come out again. Bojo knew that she was a guest and had to follow the host's wishes. When she heard Chin Mo's words, she ran back and threw herself on the sofa. She covered herself with a small blanket and only revealed her eyes. It wasn't Momo. It was Momo. He was really a guy. Such a good-looking boy. She had never seen him before. But after what happened just now, Momo definitely didn't like her anymore. As soon as he thought of this, Bojo couldn't help but rub her nose. Even her ears were drooping, looking listless. Finally, the little tiger stopped causing trouble. Chin Mo had wanted to turn off the lights and sleep. Under normal circumstances, he would be lying in bed and reading The Little Prince at this time. However, when he saw that furry little head with water vapor on it, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Chin Mo paused, as though he was thinking about something. Later on, he told himself to forget it. He couldn't go on like this. He didn't have the energy to care about others. Clatter. The lights dimmed. Bojo realized that she had done something wrong. She didn't make a sound, lying on the sofa. Eventually, she drifted off to sleep. As for young Master Chin, he didn't know if it was because there was another person in the room, or because he was thinking about something else, or because he was kissed, hugged, and seen naked today. The ups and downs were endless. So much so that when he closed his eyes, the figure of the culprit appeared in his mind. I can't sleep. Chin Mo could only turn his head. From that position, he could see the little ball on the sofa. The little tiger that hadn't grown up looked so cute, but it would eat people. Chin Mo looked at it. He was probably too tired. His eyelids started to droop. At first, he thought that he would dream of being alone in the main house of the Chin family. Other than the nanny and assistant, no one else was around. After all, everyone in the family was so busy. It was normal for him to play alone. Moreover, he was overseas now. Surprisingly, Chin Mo didn't dream that night. Perhaps his energy and stamina were used to guard against a certain little tiger. That night, he slept very soundly. It was a snowy night. The cold moon. From time to time, the sound of an owl could be heard. This type of bird was rare in the country. But it still existed overseas. It was as though he had come to a magical world. Even the forest outside the window could be seen clearly. Morning always came at the right time. When the sun shone down, it could light up a lot of places. The white European-style villa had a completely different vibe compared to the ones in the country. This was probably the charm of the culture and architecture. The streets here were especially clean. There was also a thick layer of snow. It had been snowing for an entire night. They hadn't had time to clean it up. When they stepped on it, they would squeak. But the snow plow was already here. The driver was also wearing a furry hat, which was very appropriate for the occasion. Chin Mo woke up when he heard the music of the snow plow. He reached out to block the light that penetrated in and then turned his head. There was no one on the small sofa on his left. It was unexpected. That little tiger actually woke up earlier than him. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. He didn't want to recall what happened last night. He walked into the bathroom in his pajamas. When he was brushing his teeth and saw the bathtub, he couldn't help but frown. Sometimes, having a good memory wasn't something to be happy about. He was considering if he should tell his grandfather that he wanted to change to a different room. As long as he stepped into this bathroom, that scene would always surface in his mind. But then, Chin Mo thought about it again. There was no need. Even if he didn't want to see the little tiger next door, he would still see her. When he saw that face, even if he changed the room, he would still remember what he should remember. But there was one thing he also said. It was that night yesterday. From today onwards, everything would return to normal. Thinking of this, Chin Mo wiped the corners of his mouth with a towel. Even though she was young, her actions showed that she had been taught well. After washing up, he even changed a set of clothes for himself before walking downstairs. Before going downstairs, Chin Mo was already prepared to see the little tiger at the dining table. After all, he hadn't forgotten what she came here for yesterday. Since she was here to freeload. Freeloading once or twice was also freeloading. She probably wouldn't miss breakfast. But what Chin Mo didn't expect was that this time, he made a wrong judgment. There was no sign of the little tiger at the dining table. Even the tea and snacks weren't there. Only the young butler saw him come down and greeted him with a plate of food. "Young master, you're awake. I prepared bread and steamed buns for breakfast. Which do you want to eat?" Chapter 14:12. Even though the butler was young, he was reliable. The food was placed on the tray. It was a standard American breakfast: fried eggs, bread slices, and a bowl of butter. Chin Mo sat at the dining table. When he picked up the glass of milk, he was reminded of a certain someone who used her tiger claws to hold the milk for him to drink. The young butler didn't understand why the young master stopped. He turned his head and greeted, "Young master." Chin Mo glanced up and asked casually, "Where is she?" "She? Who?" The young butler was confused. That was why the way of thinking overseas was different from the local way of thinking. According to Chin Mo's personality, he wouldn't ask a second time after asking once. Besides, Chin Mo didn't really need to know where that person went. He just felt that she was too young. Old Master N walked in at this moment. Behind him was a local friend. That friend was a bearded professor. He liked Chin Mo the moment he saw him and said that he wanted to introduce his granddaughter to Chin Mo. Old Master N smiled at the side. He just came here and definitely wanted to introduce his grandson to the people in the circle. Hence, the courtyard on this side. This day wasn't quiet. Moreover, Old Master N had sent out an invitation before he came. Many people were curious about what the grandson of this legendary Chinese businessman looked like. Of course, those who could get the invitation were all from extraordinary backgrounds. There was an endless stream of visitors. Chin Mo had changed into an exquisitely made suit. His black hair and eyes made him look more mysterious than other children of his age. Coupled with his aura. When people first saw this noble child, they liked him. "Chin Mo. I heard my grandfather mention your name." The person who said this was a blonde girl wearing a puffy skirt. She had blue eyes and looked at him in surprise. "Are you from Japan?" Qin Mo glanced sideways. He had learned to distance himself at a young age. No, I'm Chinese. What a pity, I guessed wrong. The blonde girl was vexed at first, but then she smiled. My name is Angelia. They are all my friends. Do you want to go over and say hello? That way, everyone can play together in the future and eat cocoa pancakes together. Qin Mo had a cold personality, but he knew that this was a gathering organized by his grandfather for him, so he didn't reject. However, from the beginning to the end, he spoke very little. This made many foreign children look at him from the side, feeling that he was more and more like a prince. The interaction between children was very casual, and many of them would even run around. They were little radishes, after all. It would definitely be lively if there were more of them. In comparison, some little girls were even more infatuated with Qin Mo, who had been as elegant as a pine tree the entire time. He had grown up in the military compound. This meant that Qin Mo's stance was different from other kids. Someone even asked him if he had received an aristocratic English education. Grandpa smiled and said, no. He didn't say anything else. The adults were holding wine glasses, and even the air was filled with the aroma of food. There was also chicken and pizza placed on the long table, all steaming hot. There are many desserts in different shapes. This place was simply a paradise for children. Qin Mo stood there. During the intermission, he was bored and found a place to sit down. He raised his eyes and glanced at the room next door. The lights were on. Chapter 14:13. Since there were people here, why didn't they come over? Could it be that she didn't need to freeload today? Or did he not smell the scent in the air? A tiger like her. He probably wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to freeload. After realizing what he was thinking, Qin Mo frowned. It was really too boring to think of that little tiger who liked to hug people. He turned his head and looked at his peers who were eating desserts. Qin Mo had never liked socializing, while the other children were making a fuss. He loved restoring blocks and exploring basements. When he was 3 years old, he didn't say a word for an entire day. Because of this, his family was worried that he might have autism. Perhaps the more sensitive and intelligent the child was, the smarter he was. The easier it was to encounter such a situation. It was from the beginning that he felt bored that he gradually lost his feelings. This was related to the environment he grew up in, and it was also related to himself. Qin Mo's nature was indifferent and he was too mature. The more he was like this, the tighter he wrapped himself up. Grandpa noticed this as well. That was why he suggested to bring his grandson for a change of environment. Children abroad should mature a little earlier. Perhaps he could find his little friends. But when Grandpa saw that his grandson was polite from start to finish, unlike the elegance he should have shown at his age, he knew that this arrangement wouldn't be very effective. Usually, parties with children wouldn't last too long. When Qin Mo followed his grandfather out to send them off, the lights in front of them were still on. His voice still carried the clarity of his age. Grandfather, why isn't Uncle Bo here? The two of them were good friends. If it was a banquet, the other party should have come. Old Master and didn't expect his grandson to ask him this question. He turned and smiled. Your Uncle Bo isn't back yet. She didn't come back. Qin Mo frowned. Grandpa replied. Little Bojio seems to be the only one at home, but her mother will be back at night. Your Uncle Bo will probably come with a gift tomorrow. He is a completely different person at night and in the day. Qin Mo listened casually and glanced over. How old was the little tiger? How could he leave her alone at home? However, he did not ask about this matter. It was because he found it troublesome. If he asked, Grandpa would definitely send someone to pick up the little tiger or think of something else. Qin Mo thought about this and followed Grandpa. He returned to the house. There was a huge difference between the temperature inside and outside. The rest of them hadn't left yet. In order to show his hospitality, Grandpa even asked the chef to make a Chinese-style supper. Stacks of bean buns, bowls of century egg and lean meat congee, and glutinous rice balls brought from China were just right for the children. When Angelia saw this, her pair of blue eyes seemed to be lit up. She was very cute, and the other little radishes also surrounded her. The young butler scooped a bowl of glutinous rice balls and handed it to Chin Mo. He looked at the little prince in front of him, who was so noble that he didn't look like a real person. After receiving the bowl, he said in a flat voice, "Take 2 bean buns and a bowl of porridge in a thermos box. Send it to the neighbor next door." The young golden-haired butler immediately understood and went to do it. Only then did Chin Mo lower his lids and chew on the glutinous dumplings. The way he ate was so leisurely that the children next to him were all watching. But Chin Mo didn't seem to mind. He didn't explain his actions to the young butler either. It was probably because there was only one child with the same bloodline as him here. It was inevitable that he would want to take care of her. This situation wouldn't happen in China. After all, there weren't any children at such a young age who would stay at home alone. Except for him, that was right. The little tiger's situation was very similar to his. They were all alone at home. It was the same even at night. When Chin Mo ate the first glutinous rice ball, he had already concealed most of the emotions in his eyes. Grandpa was still greeting the guests. He probably wouldn't notice him. That was good. Because if Grandpa found out that he had asked someone to send something to the little tiger next door, Grandpa would definitely throw that person to him and tie him up. That would be a huge problem for him. And he hated trouble the most. It was still snowing outside. At the end of the banquet, the arrival of the Chinese-style supper reignited the enthusiasm of many children. Basically, they were all praising Chinese cuisine. The courtyard next door was much quieter. Bo Jiu was indeed at home. She was hugging her little keyboard, lowering her head to drink her medicine. She coughed from time to time. It wasn't very serious. She was still wearing the little tiger pajamas, and her face was abnormally red. Whenever she heard the sound of a car outside, she would run to the window and take a look. Her little tail wagged a few times, and then she would curl back into the sofa. The phone on the table rang. Bo Jiu didn't need to look to know who it was. When she picked up the phone, she nodded twice and emphasized, "Mom, I drank my medicine obediently." When the person on the other side heard this, he smiled lightly. He wanted to fly back immediately, but he could only deal with the matters here. Bo Jiu was the one who suggested hanging up the phone. But after hanging up the phone, she hugged her little keyboard again. She squatted there and agitated for a while. Then she bit a piece of bread. At the Bo family's side, the dining table was filled with prepared food. They hired a long-term nanny. But they preferred to cook for themselves. Even if they were eating cooked noodles. But today was an exception. Mr. Bo wasn't back and Mrs. Bo was too busy. She could only let the nanny prepare the things at home. But Bo Jiu didn't like to let the nanny take care of her. Besides, her father still had some secrets at home. Hence, early in the afternoon, Bo Jiu asked the nanny to go back. She strolled around the room alone, dismantling the keyboard and so on. She usually did the same thing, so she didn't feel much. She didn't know why today. It was probably because it was too lively outside. But she had a cold and couldn't go out. Hence, she was really envious of those who could go to the little princess's house. Thinking of this, little Bo Jiu ran to the window and took a look. She coughed lightly and pouted her little mouth. Her ears drooped down. After the golden-haired butler rang the doorbell, he saw such a little tiger opening the door. He didn't understand what had happened. But he was still as enthusiastic as ever. "My beautiful lady, how can I help you?" The golden-haired butler wanted to make her happy, so he made a playful expression. "I guess you will definitely like the things in my hands." They have captured many people's hearts. As he spoke, he pushed the thermos box in his hands forward. Bo-jo took a look and her eyes lit up. Bean paste bun. So this is called bean paste bun. The golden-haired butler chuckled. Young master asked me to send it over. Young master. Little princess. Bo-jo was instantly revived. The little tiger's tail swept twice and she was very polite. Please come in. The golden-haired butler took off his hat and followed her in. He placed the thermos box on the table and the two of them chatted for a while. Then, he left. She looked at the bean paste bun and century egg lean meat porridge. Bo-jo reached out and tugged her little ears. Previously, she was worried that the little princess would be angry if she saw him naked. But now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. The little princess was really too considerate. He even asked the butler to send her a bean paste bun. The more Bo-jo thought about it, the bigger the smile on her face. Even though she was still coughing, it didn't affect her at all. After eating, Bo-jo thought about it seriously. She had to thank the little princess personally. She couldn't go like this. It was too ostentatious. When the sky got darker, she would go over after equipping herself. Moreover, the little princess had already given her food. It wouldn't be right if she didn't give him a gift in return. Bo-jo looked at the little keyboard in her arms. She had decided to give him her favorite toy. Also, she had to tell the little princess in person. She had seen him naked. She would take responsibility for this. That was it. That was right. Bo-jo clenched her little fists at her reflection in the mirror. The smile on her face was a little mischievous. At this moment, Chin-mo still didn't know that the biggest problem with him sending food over wasn't that old master would ask. Instead, it was that the little tiger that was being fed was getting restless again. Chin-mo had never taken people saying that they liked him seriously. That was because too many people said that they liked someone, but it was just a way to express their feelings. They wouldn't care about the person who had to bear the pain and would make their own decisions. For example, in the past, there was a little girl who said that she liked him. He didn't like her. Then, the other party started crying, as if he had bullied her. Chin-mo didn't have any opinions about that girl. But at the same time, he didn't want such a thing to happen again. It was meaningless and very boring. Hence, even when the little tiger said that she liked him, he didn't take it to heart. But it was probably because the little tiger was too obedient occasionally. That was why he had a little bit of patience towards her. But when he thought about it again, she wasn't obedient but stupid. After Chin-mo and old master sent off the last batch of guests, he took off his little suit jacket and handed it to the golden-haired butler standing beside him. The butler lowered his head and reported. Young master, Miss Jo ate everything. She shouldn't be hungry anymore. Don't worry. When Chin-mo heard this, he frowned. When did I care about whether she was hungry or not? The golden-haired butler paused. Chin-mo's voice was very calm. It's just because they are neighbors. It's not polite if I don't send something over for such a lively gathering. Moreover, Uncle Bo is grandfather's old friend. The golden-haired butler nodded and looked at the little back view that was walking up the stairs. In his heart, he wondered if the children of China matured so early. This aura was a little too strong. However, China was really a country of etiquette. Chapter 14:14. The banquet ended. The guests had already left. As the host, old master was exhausted after a day of hard work. But because he was a businessman, even if it was night time, old master would still be busy. Old master had urgent matters to attend to. For example, a sudden international conference. Old master was worried that his grandson would be tired today, so he specially instructed his subordinates to clean up the living room and not make too much noise. There would be specialized people to clean up after the banquet. After Chin Mo sent them off, he reached out and pulled open his little suit. After entering the room, he turned back into the quiet little prince. Even his side profile was cold and indifferent. His hair was black and soft, sticking to the back of his ears. He was wearing a white shirt. When he turned his little body to untie his sleeves, the air of elegance seeped out again. At 5 years old, there weren't many children like him at this age. Using movie Queen Anne's words, her cold little boy sometimes didn't seem like a real person. But at this moment, Chin Mo was still a little immature. For example, the sigh that happened now. It was actually a little cute. Chin Mo had originally planned to take off his shirt and take a shower. But just as he was about to put his shirt down, he suddenly frowned and looked towards the floor-to-ceiling window not far away. The bulging movement made Chin Mo, who had grown up in the military courtyard, raise his eyebrows slightly. Then his handsome and elegant little face was filled with coldness. Just as he was about to press the internal line for the bodyguards on the first floor to come up. Suddenly, there was the sound of a flower pot falling on the ground. There was also the sound of the wind outside. And a certain someone muttering to herself, "Is this window so hard to open? It seems like I have to cut it open. When the time comes, my dad will say I'm naughty again. How troublesome." After hearing this sentence, Chin Mo's brows didn't relax. Chin Mo's brows didn't relax. Instead, they furrowed even tighter. You have to be troubled about cutting the window. Which normal person would cut the window? Chin Mo realized that he had started to take deep breaths again. He looked down at his upper body. He wasn't wearing anything. The temperature of his little face dropped by a few degrees. Outside the window, little Bojio was shaking her tiger tail and studying the window in front of her seriously. His moves were as fierce as a tiger, but his actual score was 2 against 5. After a long time, he felt that he was still too gentle. He simply pulled the small school bag over and was about to use the tools to open it. Little Bojio didn't expect to be discovered. After all, her ability to climb over walls was well known in the surrounding area. Although the weather today was a little cold. However, she still deliberately avoided the people on the first floor. She even took advantage of her small size to perfectly avoid the camera in the corner of the Yin family. Therefore, his actions were a little unrestrained. His tiger face was covered with a tiger hat, and he looked extremely serious. When Chin Mo lifted the curtains, he saw a little tiger that had climbed over the wall. For some reason, she was wearing a small mask on her face. Her small body was tilted to the side, and beside her was a flower pot. It looked as if she could fall at any time. However, she didn't realize that when her big round eyes saw Chin Mo, she was first stunned. Then, she immediately smiled brightly. Even the dimples on her cheeks could be seen clearly. Momo. Chapter 14-15. She couldn't help but feel a headache. Could this idiot have some safety awareness? Chin Mo pulled the window open and said calmly, "Come down." Was he angry? Bojio was still young back then. She couldn't understand why the little princess was angry. Was it because she came too late and disturbed his rest? She remembered that it was indeed quite late. He didn't sleep on time because of her yesterday. Also, he saw her naked. Bojio admitted that she felt guilty. She moved her hands and feet more nimbly. She came down when he asked her to. When she came down, she didn't forget to turn back to take her little keyboard. This action caused a thin layer of sweat to form on Chin Mo's forehead. He didn't think and said, "What are you doing?" Bojio opened her eyes wide. Her tiger tail was still sweeping. "I'm taking the little keyboard." After she finished speaking, she jumped onto the ground and shook the snow off her head. She handed the thing in her hand forward as though she was presenting a treasure. She was still wearing the little mask on her face. Her voice was muffled and she sounded a little fierce. Chin Mo finally returned to normal when he saw her land on the ground. He wasn't worried that something would happen to her. It was just that she was so young and she was lying on the windowsill alone. Didn't she consider the possibility of falling down? The more Chin Mo thought about it, the colder his eyes became. He didn't reach out to take the little keyboard. This made Bojio feel slightly awkward. She first looked up at Chin Mo's little face. When she lowered her head, she remembered that not everyone was like her and liked the unusual gift of a keyboard. She seemed to have given it to the wrong person. With this thought, Bojio felt a little depressed. But this depression didn't last long. In the next second, Bojio raised her little face. Her eyes were still round and bright. Momo, you don't like little keyboards, right? What do you like? I'll give it to you next time. I have many toys. I don't like anything. Chin Mo tilted his head. Then, his fingers paused again. Because a certain little tiger started coughing for some reason. She coughed softly, one cough after another. This made him frown again. His gaze landed on her face with the little mask. When he spoke, he sounded a little cold. It's so late. Why are you wearing a mask? This? I caught a cold yesterday. I didn't want to come over at first because I was afraid that I would infect you. But when I saw that you asked the butler to send something to me, I wanted to come over and thank you. If I wore a mask like this, I wouldn't infect you. Yesterday, I realized that your body is very weak. If I pounced on you, you would fall. I can't let you catch another cold. Bojio placed the little keyboard on her arm and used her free hand to pinch her ear. Chin Mo was about to get angry when he heard her mumbling. Which boy liked to be called weak? But at that moment, he seemed to have remembered something. Did you catch a cold yesterday? Chin Mo had always had a good memory. The visual sense was also strong. At that moment, for some reason, the image of that person curled up on the sofa without drying her hair appeared in his mind. Had she caught a cold because he hadn't let her get up and dry her hair? Thinking of this, Chin Mo frowned again. However, the little tiger did not notice it. She continued, Momo, are you going to sleep? I'll go back first today. I'll look for you when I'm better. With that, Bojio prepared to head back the way she had come. Unexpectedly, she had only just lifted her leg. The tiger's tail was caught by someone. She turned her body sideways and saw the indifferent face of the prince. Momo? Bojio didn't understand. Her eyes widened and her tiger ears perked up. Chin Mo lowered his voice. Little Bojio, are you dumb? Bojio felt the need to explain herself. Chin Mo didn't give her a chance. With a forceful move, he picked up the person who was about the same size as him. Bojio was still a little confused. But after being hugged, she didn't care about the little princess asking her if she was an idiot. She smiled happily. Chin Mo didn't give her a pleasant look. Why are you running around when you have a cold? I didn't run around today. I didn't feel well so I went home first. Otherwise, I would have accompanied you for breakfast, Bojio replied seriously. After she finished, she couldn't help coughing. Chin Mo took a deep breath and reached out to press the phone beside him. The butler downstairs picked up the phone. He was surprised that there was an internal line at this time. Young master. Bring the first aid box up. When Chin Mo said this, people would often forget his current age. The golden-haired butler heard the words and his eyelids twitched. Young master, what's wrong? Please don't let anything happen to this young master. The importance that Chairman An placed on this young master was indescribable. They had just arrived. If anything happened, Chairman An would definitely return to China immediately. Chin Mo could tell what the young butler was thinking from his voice. It's not me. Bring the first aid box up. You don't have to tell grandfather. Also, bring a pot of hot water up. Hot water. Basically, the cute foreigners wouldn't understand that Chinese people had to drink hot water when they were sick. In China, If you had a cold, you had to drink more water. If your stomach wasn't feeling well, you had to drink more hot water. If your aunt came, you had to drink more hot water too. Even though the golden-haired butler had only interacted with his little master for 2 days, he had a basic understanding of his personality. Moreover, Chairman An had said that no matter what request his little master had, he just had to follow it. Hence, no matter how worried the golden-haired butler was, he didn't bother Chairman An. After all, they were having a business meeting. But when the golden-haired butler carried the first aid box upstairs, he suddenly realized something. If his little master didn't say it was him, who could it be? When the golden-haired butler pushed open the door, his question was answered. Unknowingly, there was a little tiger in the room. The little tiger was sitting on the sofa in the room with a small mask on her face. She seemed to have done something wrong. She was hugging her little keyboard and looking at his little master, who seemed to be in deep thought. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. "Hi, we meet again." Honestly speaking, the young butler was a little confused. Even his golden hair was fluttering. What was going on? Why was the person from the opposite house here? When he had sent the things over, she was still in the opposite room. Besides, he had been tidying up in the living room downstairs. Other than sending people away, he hadn't seen anyone else enter. He hadn't seen the little tiger either. How did she suddenly appear in his young master's room? The young butler's thoughts were all revealed on his face. He finally met someone who would show his thoughts on his face. Bojo jumped down from the sofa, wanting to tell him how she came over. Little Bojo. Just these 3 words. He successfully made the little tiger unable to be mischievous anymore. After Chin Mo called her name, he glanced sideways at the young butler standing by the door. The young butler didn't know why, but when his young master looked at him like this, he felt that his presence here was unnecessary. No, that wasn't right. There was something more than unnecessary. It was as if she was saying, "What are you doing here? You're here, and she's getting restless." The young butler, this should be the feeling of being shot while lying down, as the Chinese often say. Indeed, Chin Mo felt that the butler's appearance affected a certain little tiger. Her throat was uncomfortable and she kept coughing. She was still mischievously trying to speak. With that in mind, Chin Mo took a deep breath. Then he took the medicine box from the young butler and took out a thermometer. His little face was cold as he walked in front of a certain someone. Mask. Bojo saw this and knew that the little princess wanted to take her temperature. She cooperated and removed her little mask. Then she opened her mouth and bit on the thermometer. The young butler was enlightened. So the medicine box that the little young master wanted was for Miss Jo. But there was one thing he was really curious about. How exactly did Miss Jo come in? But it was obvious that his duties were only limited to delivering the medicine box and hot water. Because the little young master had given him a look, asking him to figure it out on his own and leave. Even though they didn't speak the same language and were of different nationalities, the meaning of the look didn't matter. She saw the door close. Little Bojo felt a little regretful. She didn't even have time to brag about her heroic deeds. This was the first time she climbed such a high wall. Besides, she wanted to ask him what the little princess liked. From the looks of it, she could only find a chance to ask Grandpa in the future. She bit on the thermometer. This time, she couldn't speak. She could only look at the little princess who was standing in front of her and picking medicine for her. Bojo blinked as she looked at him. The little princess seemed to be very impatient with her. She could tell from his expression. But he still felt very gentle. Other people wouldn't be so nice to her. He wasn't afraid that she would infect her when she caught a cold. He even gave her medicine. Bojo couldn't help but smile when she thought about this. She even jumped down from the sofa and circled around Chin Mo. The little tiger behind her kept wagging her tail. Chin Mo took out the cold medicine. From the side, he saw a certain someone with a bright smile. At that time, Chin Mo even thought, did this person know how to smile? In the end, it would give rise to emotions that even a child would have. It really made him jealous. Her parents must be special to her. Thinking of this, Chin Mo came to a sudden realization. He knew he was wrong. Because yesterday, when he saw the light that didn't turn on, he knew that she was like him. Her parents were very busy. Chapter 14-16. Ah, look, our little tiger Bo was still very obedient. She bared her soft tiger teeth so that it would be easier for him to take the thermometer out. When she opened her mouth, her almond-like tiger eyes were still staring at Chin Mo. She looked as though she had something to say. Chin Mo gave her a cold look as though he was saying, don't you dare to speak again. Little tiger Bo felt that this wasn't right. She was also puzzled by the hostility her little princess had towards her. Chin Mo didn't bother about her. He took out the thermometer and looked at it. Your temperature is normal. Bo Jiu nodded. I don't have a fever anymore. Mom gave me some medicine in the morning. Chin Mo heard her hoarse voice. After she finished speaking, she coughed. Her head was probably a little heavy from the coughing. Even her little shoulders were trembling a little. Didn't having a fever mean that she wasn't sick? Chin Mo couldn't be bothered to say anything to this idiot. He opened a packet of medicine and took out a pill. His slender fingers touched the side of her mouth. Ah woo. Bo Jiu never rejected anything. Even if the medicine was a little bitter, it was given by her little princess. It was still delicious. On the other hand, after Chin Mo fed her, he frowned fiercely. Then he placed the medicine in her hand. Eat it yourself. He must have been possessed. Why did he feed her personally just now? He thought about it. He must have been so angry with this little tiger that he lost his ability to think. After letting out a long sigh, Chin Mo returned to his noble little prince appearance. He walked towards the window. Then he reached out and closed the window. Then he locked it twice. Bo Jiu peeled the medicine and watched at the side. When she wagged her tail, she had a feeling that her little princess didn't actually want to lock the window. He wanted to throw her out through the window. If it was possible, Chin Mo wanted to do that. But for some reason, not only did he allow her to come down, he even asked the butler to bring the medicine box upstairs and feed her the medicine personally. He didn't know how his grandfather would react when he heard about this. Chin Mo's eyes moved. When he turned his body, he saw the little tiger peeling the medicine with great difficulty. She ate 5 pills in one go. 5 pills. Chin Mo pressed down on the man's tiger paw. Little Bo Jiu. Bo Jiu widened her eyes. After looking at him for a while, she seemed to have been enlightened. Momo, why do you keep sighing? Ever since I came in, you have been sighing. Are you tired? Is there anything else? Let me tell you, as a person, the most important thing is to be happy. Nothing else is important. Pat my head. Why was he always sighing? Chin Mo watched as the little claw appeared on his head and rubbed it twice. He told himself not to bother with a sick person. Besides, there was no doubt that she was an idiot. Chin Mo looked at her, his expression ugly. Are you done touching me? Bo Jiu shook her head. No, Momo, your hair is so soft and nice to touch. It's different from mine. Mine is too hard and prickles. Chin Mo smirked. Drink the medicine and go home. Also, don't climb over the wall again. Bo Jiu paused. She lowered her lids and lifted the small bowl. She drank the medicine that the little princess had prepared for her and glanced at the window at the side. I'll go out from the main door, Bo Jiu said. She jumped down from the sofa. She hugged the little keyboard in her hands and said, Momo, I'll come and find you tomorrow. She planned to leave. The more she acted like this, the more Chin Mo felt annoyed by the small cough. He had said before that he didn't like being liked by others for granted. Because he needed to respond to all liking. If he didn't respond, it would be his fault. He was more resistant to such things. But this little tiger wasn't just a little stupid. Even when she was sick, she didn't know how to use this weakness to threaten him. If he asked her to leave, she would leave. She seemed to listen to everything he said. She didn't want him to respond just because she liked him. Instead, she wanted to give him something. Chin Mo turned his head. He wanted to read and not think about that idiot anymore. But just as he made up his mind, the young butler's voice came from the open door. The young butler's voice came from the open door. It was a unique American accent. "Oh, Miss Jo, are you going back? It's still snowing outside. Mr. Bo and Mrs. Bo aren't home. At this time, the heater in the living room should be cold. Why don't you wait for a while? I'll go down to get some charcoal and go with you." Bo Jio raised her eyebrows when she heard this form of address. The young butler was a little shy. "Don't Chinese people call themselves this? I just learned it from an online novel. There's a translation in the novel so I can learn a lot of knowledge." Bo Jio was still young and didn't understand. "So this is how people call themselves?" "Yes," the young butler said with certainty. This made Chin Mo frown. He couldn't focus on the book anymore. He reached out his hand and pressed the young butler's intercom with his white and tender fingers. When the young butler saw the call, the smile on his face was still there. His expression gradually changed. "Young master. I'm here." "Huh? Send Miss Jo back to your room." "Okay, no problem." After hanging up the phone, the butler lowered his head. He was a little confused. "Miss Jo, young master asked you to sleep in his room tonight." Bo Jio was confused too. Was it such a good thing? The young butler had a lot of thoughts going through his mind. After all, he had watched the banquet. There were so many funny children, but he hadn't seen his young master treat anyone specially. He definitely wouldn't touch a cup that had been touched by others. Not to mention the food. He was a gentleman, but he didn't dance with others. The young butler even suspected that this young master from China was like what the novels said. Was he the reincarnation of the leader of some faction? He was so special because his bones were so good. He had the etiquette and alienation that a young man like him shouldn't have. He had studied it before. His young master was definitely a clean freak, and it wasn't a small one. Every time his young master wiped his hands, he would be especially careful. He would change his clothes 3 times a day. The bathroom had to be clean. Even his shoes were spotless. No one would doubt that he was a genuine little prince. However, the golden-haired butler was a little puzzled. Such a clean freak young master would actually let someone spend the night at his house. Although it had happened once yesterday. But yesterday and today were different. Yesterday was arranged by Chairman N. The young master's entire body was filled with cold resistance. But today, it was the young master who suggested it. Chapter 14-17. However, since it was the young master's order, even if he had a bunch of questions in his heart, he wouldn't say them out loud. But the golden-haired butler didn't put on his professional smile. His young master gave him a gaze. That gaze was indescribable. If he had to describe it, it would probably be to stay away from the little tiger. The golden-haired butler watched in a daze as the door was closed. He started to reflect on what he had done wrong. After all, in the novels, offending an expert would result in a tragic outcome. No, he had to learn more about China's profound knowledge and culture later. Momo. Bo Jio hugged the little keyboard in her arms. Her smile was brighter than anyone else's. "I'm back. I know you're back." Chin Mo lowered his gaze. He didn't want to talk to her. After a while, he said, "I don't call myself that anymore. It's how people used to express their politeness and humility in ancient times." "Is that so?" Bo Jio's eyes lit up again. She had grown up abroad. Usually, she only knew how to fight and study the little keyboard and a bunch of little tadpole codes. She had very little knowledge. In the past, she had interacted with children from China. But no one seemed to understand these things. The little princess was different. She knew everything. When Bo Jio thought about this, she felt inexplicably happy. "Momo, you're amazing." The sudden praise made Qin Mo tilt his head. "Don't say such nice words. Go back to your seat." "Okay." She became very obedient again. But at the same time, she didn't forget to be mischievous. "Momo, your ears are so red." Qin Mo took a deep breath and placed the book in his hands down. "They're hot." "Oh." Bo Jio smiled. She thought that Momo was so awkward. He was obviously shy, but he insisted that he was hot. But she was very understanding and wouldn't expose him. Also, her little princess was even more adorable when he was awkward. Bo Jio seemed to be addicted to teasing her pet. She would say a few words from time to time. In the beginning, Qin Mo still ignored her. Then, he allowed the little tiger to be mischievous. Bo Jio continued to be mischievous. She realized that she might disturb the little princess's reading. Hence, she curled up on the sofa quietly and started to touch her little keyboard. When Qin Mo saw her like that, he recalled what had happened last night. Especially after the other party drank the medicine, he was still coughing, and there was no sign of him getting better. Qin Mo stood up. "Go to the bed." "On the bed?" Bo Jio was still wearing the little tiger's pajamas. When she heard his words, her ears perked up. "Momo, I thought you didn't like other people sleeping on your bed?" She wasn't stupid. She could tell. Momo held a grudge against a lot of people. She wasn't sure if others understood. In any case, she understood. Moreover, she was also like this. She didn't like others to understand her things. But since yesterday, her little princess had become an exception. When Qin Mo heard the question, his fingers paused. "Indeed, I don't like it. That's why I can only sleep with you today. You're not allowed to touch it in the future." After finishing this sentence, Qin Mo suddenly realized something. That was, he seemed to be less and less good at pretending in front of this little tiger. He shouldn't be like this. At the very least, one had to be polite when dealing with guests. He couldn't speak like this. But he couldn't control himself. Chapter 14:18. Bo Jio listened to the little princess's arrogant words. She wagged her tiger tail and behaved like a loyal dog. On the other hand, Qin Mo didn't want to listen to the coughing anymore. He asked someone to prepare a bowl of pear soup. He watched as the little tiger drank a bowl. Then, she really entered the state of rest. This time, before Qin Mo entered the bathroom, he said to Bo Jio, "Don't come in." Bo Jio looked at the back view that was filled with rejection. She reached out and touched her ears. She thought about it seriously. Her little princess was shy again. She would restrain herself today. She really wanted to go in and bathe her little princess. But she was sick now. It was easy for her to infect others. But there was something she had to remind him. "Momo, your body is weak. Be careful when you bathe. Don't bathe for too long. You will be out of breath like yesterday." She still dared to mention yesterday. "Ha!" When Qin Mo heard this before he closed the door, he tightened his grip on the white scarf. He was too lazy to take another deep breath, so he slammed the door shut and locked it. His handsome face was as elegant and handsome as ever. This time, he didn't fill the bathtub with water. Instead, He turned on the shower. When he came out of the bathroom, he had already changed into his pajamas. In Bojio's eyes, the little princess's pajamas were more pleasing to the eye. Her little old axe was a little too exaggerated. It wasn't like the little princess's pajamas. They were clean and didn't have any extra patterns. Qin Mo used the scarf to wipe his hair. He was still young. Although he was already used to being stared at, he still felt uncomfortable when people looked at him from head to toe and from his tail to his head. In the end, they looked at his side profile with a pair of big eyes. He hadn't experienced this before. After all, when other people looked at him, they would sneak peeks at him. Children would not be as shy as adults. But the word shy was obviously not suitable for a certain little tiger. Qin Mo placed the scarf down and turned his head. He was about to speak. The little tiger, Jiu, spoke before him. Momo, you don't have to be shy. I will take responsibility. Take responsibility? What responsibility? Qin Mo frowned again. He wanted to warn her not to be mischievous. She should sit there obediently and not speak if she could. Why did she say she would take responsibility? Yesterday, I didn't know you were different from me and saw you naked. I called my dad and he said that the best way is to be responsible for you. I agree, I can't be a heartless man and I can't take advantage of you. That's right. Qin Mo's eyes lit up. That's right. I'm not going to be a heartless man and I can't take advantage of you. After hearing this explanation, Qin Mo's little face became even colder. He took out a small blanket from the closet and threw it directly on the little tiger's head. This was the best way to shut her up. Who knew that he had underestimated the little tiger's mischievous behavior? Chapter 14:19. After all, you're so weak. After all, you're so weak. After all, you're so weak. This sentence echoed in Qin Mo's mind 3 times. He looked at the little tiger head that was exposed. He wanted to pull her up and throw her out. But she was still counting the mistakes she had made with her little fingers, coughing from time to time. Little Bojio, are you an idiot? Qin Mo tried to hold it in, but the only thing he could say was coldness. The little boy Bojio didn't understand how she was stupid. Qin Mo glanced over. He was wearing his pajamas and looked noble. Why are you feeling pity? Can you kiss me casually just because you don't have a cold? How can you be so optimistic? Didn't I tell you yesterday to stay 1 meter away from me? Didn't you tell me to stay so far away from you so that I wouldn't kiss you? Bojio seemed to have understood something. Her eyes widened. Qin Mo arched a brow. Why else? Oh. Bojio was disappointed for a second. Then, she said, anyway, I will be responsible for you. Besides, Momo, you've misunderstood. I'm usually very reserved. I'm so passionate because I want you to know my sincerity. Qin Mo turned his head. No need. No need for what? Bojio scratched her face. She didn't understand. Qin Mo looked at her. His gaze was calm. I don't need you to be responsible. Also, heartbreaker isn't used to describe girls. How did you learn Chinese? I didn't learn it well. Bojio felt a little guilty. Those words were like pictures. There were too many gestures. Sometimes, she remembered them but she didn't know where to use them. But that wasn't right. Her dad had said it over the phone. Being irresponsible meant being a heartbreaker. Anyway, Bojio didn't care if it was used to describe boys or girls. She would never be a heartless man. The current situation was that the little princess didn't want her to be responsible. Her dad also said that she could be tough but she couldn't force others. Little Bojio thought about it. In the end, she looked up and wagged her tail. Momo, tell me when you want me to be responsible. That situation would never happen. At that time, Qin Mo had thought that way. Moreover, he really didn't want to discuss this kind of thing with a little tiger. It would make him seem very childish. His gaze swept over. Seeing that she was still curled up on the sofa, his brows furrowed once more. I'm not asking you to go to the bed. The sofa was very close to the window. Didn't this idiot know that there would be wind on this side? I haven't showered yet. I'll go after I shower. Ever since the little princess had come out of the shower, she had been smelling his scent. It was so fragrant and so good. She wanted to take a shower too. Qin Mo watched her torment. Anyway, he understood that it was impossible for her to settle down. Half a minute passed. Momo. Qin Mo was sitting on a chair with a book in his hands. No matter how late it was, he would read a few books before going to bed. This was his habit. Qin Mo watched as the little tiger tugged at his sleeve with her claws. Her eyes were black and she looked very obedient, but in fact, the sparkle in her eyes indicated that she was going to be naughty again. Both of them looked to be 5 years old, and their heights were about the same. In comparison, Qin Mo was 3 centimeters shorter than Bojio. Chapter 14:20. Hence, the aloof young Master Qin didn't want to stand up. Which boy would be happy that he was shorter than a little tiger? This was one of the reasons why he asked her to stay away from him. But Bojio didn't know. If she wanted to shower, she had to take off her clothes first. Now that Momo was here, she couldn't just roll around and take off her clothes like she did the last time. This wasn't good. It would cause Momo's misunderstanding of her to deepen. After all, she was still very shy and reserved. But she couldn't open the zipper behind her. This was the disadvantage of having short arms. She had jumped for a long time just now, but she still couldn't pull the zipper to the end. At home, she would either roll around and take it off or her mother would help her take it off. Today, she could only trouble her future pet. Help me pull this down. As Bojio spoke, she turned her small body and obediently wagged her tail. The zipper was pulled down halfway. Since it was a clumsy little axe pajamas, no one would be able to tell if they didn't look carefully. Now, because of her action, Qin Mo also saw the fair and tender little back. Qin Mo also saw the fair and tender little back. Suddenly, his ears turned red and he tilted his head. Little Bojio. What is it? Bojio turned back and saw the little prince with a thin layer of pink on his face. He was extremely cute. He couldn't help but reach out and hug the person's waist. He said angrily, Momo, you're shy again. Don't be shy. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the veins on Qin Mo's forehead were completely broken. He watched as the little tiger picked him up from the chair, wobbled, and put him down. His breath was completely stuck in his chest. Little Bojio. Bojio scratched her ears. I'm here, I'm here. Qin Mo looked at her and didn't want to speak. Which boy would like to be carried around by a girl? His dignity as a boy was really, Qin Mo adjusted his breathing. Again and again, until the little face returned to its cold and noble appearance. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. It's such a simple logic. You should know that in the future, don't let a man help you with your zipper, even if you're a child. When Qin Mo said this, he didn't sound like an old man. It was probably because his face was too good-looking. Bojio nodded as though she was being lectured. She continued, I know, but Momo, you're not like other boys. It's okay for you to help me zip up. We're going to sleep together in the future. Who slept with you? Qin Mo pressed his throbbing temples. Then, he looked at her tiger pajamas that were about to collapse. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted, and he shouldn't have let this person sleep here. He didn't know if it was too late to throw her back. But he had heard the conversation just now. There was no one at the Bo family's side. Her cough had not gone away, and she was so clumsy that she could not even walk properly. Bojo didn't know what her pet was thinking about. She poked him with her fingers, her back itching. Chin Mo's gaze landed on her when he saw her movements. It was probably because of the material of her pajamas. After the zipper was unzipped, it would prick his hand. Therefore, her fair little back was a little red after being pricked. Chapter 14:21. Okay. She would be obedient when she needed to be. Little Jill always followed this principle to the end. Chin Mo lowered his lids. Once he decided to do something, he wouldn't be awkward anymore. Like a mature adult, he didn't just help Bojo with the zipper, he also removed the hood from her pajamas. Because he was so close, he could smell the sweet milk scent on the little tiger. A child would always be a child. While Chin Mo was deep in thought, he completely neglected the fact that he was also a child. After unzipping the zipper, Bojo could go to the bathroom and remove the little tiger pajamas herself. She was especially serious when she showered. At the same time, she thought about whether she had redeemed her image in the little princess's heart after today. In conclusion, it should be considered a success. As little Bojo thought about it, she splashed some shampoo on her head. The white foam accidentally flowed into her eyes. She used her little hands to rub them and started to wash again. It was a manly way of washing. Young Master Chin didn't see her washing. If he had seen it, he would have corrected her. After the shower, Bojo looked even fairer. She didn't let go of the little keyboard in her hands. Her hair was wet and looked very naughty when she shook it. There was even a lock of hair that was dyed silver sticking out. She looked like a cat that had just been scooped out of the water and hadn't had time to clean its fur. There would always be a cat that wanted to dress up as a little tiger. This was the perfect example. Chin Mo glanced over. In the end, his gaze landed on the hair that was dripping with water. This time, the person didn't go under the blanket. Chin Mo knew the reason clearly. Yesterday, because he had spoken, she had been afraid to disturb him. Hence, she had slept like that. With this thought, all of Chin Mo's impatience disappeared. It was obvious that the little tiger didn't know how to dry her hair. She held onto a towel and rubbed her head randomly. She coughed from time to time and hummed a tune. In the end, Chin Mo couldn't stand it anymore. Come here. When Bojo heard this word, she was confused. Then, she walked over with a confused expression. Chin Mo didn't say anything. He took the white towel over. His aura was cold. It was a deterrent. Children are like that. Perhaps, sometimes, they might not necessarily listen to adults. But when he met someone of the same age who was colder than him and couldn't see through him, he would subconsciously listen to him. Young Master Chin's aura had never been a joke since he was young. In the military compound, no matter how much those naughty kids liked to cause trouble, they would subconsciously restrain themselves in front of him. That was why all the grandfathers in the courtyard called him the Child King. Of course, one couldn't just rely on one's temperament. There was a certain amount of fist power in it. Chin Mo wasn't the kind of person who wouldn't fight. It was normal for boys to behave this way. But his style had always been different from hers. Bojo was convinced. It was the kind of coldness that emanated from the inside out after one hit that made people not dare to stab him again. This was the voice of a brat from a certain military compound. Chin Mo had never imagined that there would be a day when he, the king of children, would have to take care of a child. After he took the towel, he thought of something else. Chapter 14:22. When Chin Mo realized this, his fingers paused decisively. Then he said, "Sit there." Bojo didn't understand what the little princess was thinking. She hugged the little keyboard and sat at the designated spot. Her head was covered with a towel. Following that, a very gentle force was exerted. That kind of strength could easily make people drowsy. Coupled with the fragrance of the shower gel, it made him feel even more comfortable. Bojo hugged the little keyboard and wore her pajamas. The way she allowed him to wipe her hair was very adorable. But life depended on one's skin. Bojo wouldn't give up any chance to make a move. When Chin Mo wiped her hair, she played with the corner of his shirt. When she was discovered, she met his cold eyes. Then she smiled, revealing her little canine teeth. She lowered her head and continued playing. Chin Mo wasn't going to play tricks with this little tiger on this matter. In any case, she had already done things that were worse than that. Halfway through, the person in front of him coughed even more violently. Even her breathing became unstable. Chin Mo thought for a moment and fed her a lozenge. After taking the medicine and taking a shower, she could officially climb into bed. Bojo was a little sleepy. She probably wasn't feeling well. She really couldn't sleep. When she saw the little princess take a blanket to the sofa, she felt a little depressed. Although she had expected that the little princess wouldn't like to sleep with her, she didn't think that he would like to sleep with her. But when she saw this, she still felt that she hadn't tried hard enough. Once she recovered, she would force herself on him. She couldn't do it now. She might infect the little princess. Bojo thought about this and decided to hug her little keyboard to sleep. Chin Mo lay on the sofa. There was only one wall lamp left in the entire bedroom. It was still snowing outside. When the owl flapped its wings, it would always move the snow on the Christmas tree. Occasionally, there would be the sound of a dog barking outside. These sounds had a hypnotic effect. But anyone who had a cold or fever would know this. Fever was never something that could be cured in a day. Especially a child. Moreover, Bojo was obviously suffering from a fever. Otherwise, she wouldn't keep coughing. In reality, she wouldn't be able to sleep well. Bojo realized this too. That was why she hugged the little keyboard and tried not to cough. It would disturb Momo's sleep. Just as Bojo was thinking about this in a daze, a fair little hand landed on her forehead. After feeling the slight heat, her cold little face was even colder than before. It must be a little fever. Fortunately, it was not a high fever. Chin Mo walked to the side and brought a cup of warm water over. He knew that the little tiger wasn't asleep, so he reached out and pulled her up. Momo. Bojo's eyes were still wide. Chin Mo placed the cup in front of her mouth and said only one word, drink. Bojo lowered her head, her stomach rumbling. After she finished drinking, he gave her some more medicine and used his left hand to touch her forehead again. Bojo was very obedient. Chin Mo glanced at the things in her arms. The keyboard is cold. If I don't hug something, I won't be able to sleep. Bojo said whatever was on her mind. Momo, why don't you let me hug you? Chapter 14:23. Her plan was exposed. Bojo felt a little regretful. She changed to another object but the effect was the same. He probably noticed her discomfort. Chin Mo asked casually, can't sleep? Her voice was a little muffled. She probably wanted to cough. Chin Mo walked over and poured another glass of water. But this time, other than water, he took a book from the bookshelf. That book was the one he read every day. Bojo recognized the page. The little princess had been reading it yesterday. Move over a little. Chin Mo stood beside the bed. His expression didn't change much. But when Bojo heard these words, she instantly became lively. She moved her small body to the left. The space wasn't just a little. After she finished this action, she promised seriously, Momo, don't worry. Even if we sleep together, I won't touch you like I did yesterday. Don't be afraid. Chin Mo's hand that was lifting the thin blanket tightened. He looked up and gave her 2 words. Shut up. Bojo was very happy. She didn't care about the little princess's resistance at all. She understood that he was shy. If Qin Mo knew that this little tiger attributed everything to his shyness, the veins on his forehead would probably rupture again. But fortunately, Bojiu was still obedient sometimes. He laid on the bed with his big eyes and a small face like an angel's, looking at people with a fierce look on his face. Qin Mo leaned against the head of the bed and opened the book 1001 Nights in his hands. His melodious and cold male voice rang out. There was a little childishness in it. It was said that in ancient times, on an island between ancient India and China, there was a kingdom called Sazan. The king was called Shinuya. Every day, King Shinuya would marry a woman and spend the night in the palace. But every day, when the rooster sang, he would cruelly kill the woman. Children loved to listen to stories. To Bojiu, the things that her father did were treated as stories. But Mr. Bo was too busy, so he didn't have much time to tell stories. To be precise, this was the first time someone specially read her a bedtime story. At first, Bojiu was in a daze. But soon, as she listened, her coughs lessened. All her attention was focused on the little princess's side profile and the fascinating story. Time passed bit by bit with the flow of the moonlight. The two of them were different from the others, probably because they were too similar. No one would read him a bedtime story. He looked like a little prince, yes. He was a lonely little prince. Every night, she would read and sleep alone. Although there was still no one to tell him a bedtime story. However, the little heater lying beside him and listening to him with her head tilted to one side made him feel that there was nothing wrong with letting her come over once in a while. The sound of reading continued. He had just read the third story of the 1001 Stories. There were already people on the first floor. That person was none other than Mr. Bo, who was wearing a black trench coat with a bouquet of roses pinned on it. Originally, he was here to bring his little Jill back. Grandpa gestured for him to listen to the noises upstairs. Chapter 14:24. Grandpa smiled too. I heard from the butler that my grandson knew there was no one in the Bo family, so he specially asked him to send supper over. This morning, it was funny. He was a little unhappy that your little tiger wasn't around. Mr. Bo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. No matter what he did, there seemed to be an uneasy aura around him. That's good. There have been many things recently. I'm assured that she is with you. Grandpa rarely knew what he was doing. He asked, that's why you didn't go back to the castle? Ah. Mr. Bo flicked the cigarette ash with his long and slender fingers. He suddenly smiled. I'm not going back because I enjoy living off a woman. Of course, Mr. N won't understand. After all, my wife is too capable. Old Master N felt that it was enough to have such a friend despite the difference in age. He didn't feel ashamed of living off a woman. Instead, he felt proud. Speaking of which, he hadn't been active for a long time. Recently, he started again. It seemed like it wasn't peaceful outside. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed in such a place. It was probably because he wanted to protect his family. After all, he was no longer the king who came and went alone. This man was a legend who could shake many industries. However, he was raised as a little puppy at home. No, that wasn't right. The only person who would treat him as a little puppy was Joe's mother. Mr. Bo understood what Grandpa meant by his gaze. However, he didn't care. He left behind a sentence. I'll come and fetch my little Lord Joe tomorrow. Then, he disappeared into the boundless night. However, even though he was standing under the streetlight, he could still see the reflection on the second floor. The two little people weren't close to each other, but they were on the same bed. Mr. Bo smiled lightly. It was rare for his little Lord Joe to like someone so much. However, the kid from the Qin family was quite capable. He knew how to read stories to make children happy. He had never told his little Lord Joe fairy tales before. Mr. Bo stretched out his hand and flicked the cigarette butt into the rubbish bin in the courtyard. When he raised his lids, he realized that the lights in the house were turned on. He smiled. He was prepared to walk 2 rounds outside to disperse the smell of smoke before entering. First, he had to make sure that he didn't smell so bloody. Mr. Bo's legs were long. When he moved in the night, he was like an ancient night walker, landing silently. Soon, he changed into a new set of clothes in the basement. When he reappeared in the living room, he was wearing a pure white t-shirt with casual cotton-padded pants and a pair of glasses. The way he dressed made him look like a college student. Her temperament was outstanding and clear. In addition, this person was too coquettish. That's right, she was acting coquettishly. Because at the moment he appeared, Yi Shiwen's eyes widened. He put on a sleepy expression, reached out his hand, and hugged the back of the woman who was wearing a business suit and was making medicine in front of the kitchen counter from behind. He put his chin on her shoulder naturally, sniffed the nice fragrance, and dragged out his voice lazily. "Why did you come back so late today? Both Lord Jiu and I have no food to eat." Being hugged by him, the figure's face was still a little red. They had been married for so long. But for some reason, he was still the same as when he first met this person. It was probably because the other party was 3 years younger than him. Therefore, whenever they were intimate, she would always feel numb all over and take advantage of the other party. Chapter 1425. Isn't there a nanny? As a female CEO who was good at handling company affairs, she was always exceptionally patient when facing her lover. She wasn't as cold as the rumors said, but her temperament was still there. When she turned her face, her figure was very beautiful. Mr. Bo didn't move his hand away. He seemed to know that she was uncomfortable, but his breath still lingered on her snow-white neck. "The nanny doesn't cook well." As expected, the figure trembled. "I'll cook you some porridge." "I don't want to eat porridge now." The hint was probably too obvious because his slender fingers were already on the button of her suit. With a smile, his voice was a little deep. "Jiu isn't here today." She couldn't resist that kind of temptation. Even if someone said that the person in that family wasn't as simple as he looked, she still couldn't resist. And he was like a little puppy in front of her, always making her comfortable. Only in this kind of situation would he show his ruthless side. When she realized that she was being carried and placed on the kitchen counter, the temperature in the room was already very high. Everything seemed to be indescribable. Only her heartbeat could be heard. And the feeling that she couldn't control it anymore. She didn't even have time to ask where he went today. She was brought into the entanglement of his whole body. Probably because the two of them didn't know each other through dating. Hence, even now. Sometimes, she still couldn't let go. But the person younger than her didn't allow her to let go. He always thought of ways to make her lose her calmness. The sound of the button falling on the floor was very loud. This always made people feel ashamed. When the numbness hit her, she felt that the person was ridiculously mature. How could he be a little puppy? It was probably because the first time they met, the impression was too deep. She picked him up and brought him home. He was raised by her at home. It was as if it had naturally become her possession. From the time they met to the time they got married, it had only been 3 days. She had never asked if he was willing. Now that her daughter was already 4.5 years old, it seemed a little inappropriate to ask such a question again. But why was the person in front of her getting younger? On the other hand, she was already 3 years older than him. She was about to get old. She didn't know why, but he didn't seem to see it. Was it because young people had more needs? Thinking of this, it was inevitable that his thoughts would drift. He was unhappy that she wasn't paying attention. He bent down and bit her collarbone. "Mrs. Bo, is it because the temptation outside is too great that you can't even pay attention when you go home?" Shouldn't she be the one asking him this? He was still a graduate student. She had seen how hot the girls in the university were when she had driven to pick him up the last time. Those people didn't seem to mind that her Joe was still on top of his head. They say men with children are more attractive. Others said that it was impossible for him to have a child at his age. He really didn't look like a father. She still remembered the big and small pair sitting on the steps of the university, looking at her with the same expression. Their faces were full of pity, as if she would be a heinous villain if she stood them up again. 80% of Joe's personality was inherited from him. She also knew that when those hot girls from the university saw her picking him up, they thought she was his sister. However, she had never told him about this. After all, young graduate students were more likable. But he seemed to be very busy recently. Looking at the face in front of him that was obviously not in the right state, Mr. Bow narrowed his eyes and the strength in his hands increased. She still wanted to struggle. Don't, clothes, there are many of these clothes at home. When their breaths were really hot. It was still snowing outside. In the darkness, only their body temperature kept rising. Her entire body was covered in a thin layer of sweat after being tortured by him. He pushed her long hair away from her face and allowed her hands to wrap around his neck. His gaze was as deep as the night outside. Honestly speaking, when would his wife stop thinking about age? He was younger than her and it wasn't something he wanted. But in her eyes, he always seemed to be different. Mr. Bow laughed in a low voice and carried the exhausted beauty up horizontally. He returned to his little puppy image. The weather outside only cleared up the next day. When the sun shone down, everything seemed to be full of life. The European-style courtyard was always trimmed beautifully. There would definitely be lawns and trees. There would also be a white fence. There were green plants climbing on one side of the wall. Along with the sunlight, they formed fragmented silhouettes. Chin Mo stretched out his hand to block, but he still felt that it was dazzling. This made him look down instinctively. He didn't expect to see a white and tender sleeping face. When a certain little tiger slept, she really looked like a little angel. Her eyelashes were very black and long. Each of them was distinct. When they fell down, they could even fall on her face. Her cheeks were chubby. Her mouth was slightly open and she bit her thumb. She was very mischievous as she moved her thumb. Not only that, one of her hands was placed on his waist. She looked as though she was protecting him. Chin Mo took a deep breath. Did this little tiger think that she was taller than him? Was that why she was hugging him like this? After calming his expression, he wanted to lift the small blanket on them and get off the bed. But the moment his fingers moved, he heard her call, Momo. She didn't wake up. She had called out Momo unintentionally. Maybe she had dreamed of something. But that soft and childish voice made Chin Mo's heart soften, which he shouldn't have. He didn't wake her up. Instead, he stretched out his hand and placed it on her forehead. The two of them were very close to each other. They could touch each other just by raising their hands. For Chin Mo, he had never been so close to someone of the same age. After testing the other party's temperature, he turned his face away. He didn't know why he fell asleep in such a position last night. No matter what, he couldn't let this little tiger know. It was a pity for our young Master Chin. Before he got to know a certain little tiger, young Master Chin never knew what a dark history was. But now, when he thought of the difference in their height, the fact that he was carried out of the bathtub by a little tiger yesterday, and the fact that the other party had seen him as a girl because of his appearance, Chin Mo couldn't help but narrow his eyes. When he got up, he felt that his throat was a little uncomfortable. He loosened the collar of his pajamas and planned to wash up. Chapter 1426. Together. Chin Mo's frown deepened when he heard this. He turned his head and saw the little tiger climbing up from the bed. She bent her legs and held onto her little keyboard with one hand. She was rubbing her eyes with the other. She looked like she was about to jump down. Chin Mo didn't want to take a deep breath anymore. Instead, he reminded her calmly, "Little Bojio, you're a girl and I'm a boy. Tell me, how are you going to pee with me?" MMH? That tone was definitely not too happy. Bojio sobered up instantly. She paused her claws and smiled. "I forgot again. Momo, don't be angry. I know how to whistle. I can stand outside the door and whistle for you." Chin Mo turned his head and smiled coldly. Then, he stuffed her into the blanket and said, "Stay here." What a joke. Someone was whistling outside. Who could come out easily? He had also said that the only reason he could tolerate this little tiger was because she would listen to whatever he said. When Chin Mo finished washing up and came out, Bojio was still on the bed. She was probably too bored from waiting and was doing somersaults. When she saw that he was done, she rolled like a tiger and straightened her body. Chin Mo didn't have extra slippers here, so he let her wear his. At first, he didn't want to care so much about her. After this person entered the bathroom, she lowered her head and started to wash her face. Chin Mo pulled her back. He lowered his head and rolled up her sleeves in a few seconds. It was purely because he couldn't stand this idiot's actions. However, Bojio realized something. Little Princess Chin's throat seemed to be uncomfortable. She couldn't have infected him, could she? As she was thinking about this, Bojio wasn't very serious when she was washing up. She casually washed her face and ran to the study table. She remembered that the little princess had placed the medicine box here last night. At this moment, Bojio didn't recognize any medicine. Moreover, it was written in Chinese characters. She couldn't understand it. But she recognized the picture printed on it. Based on her good memory, she recognized the box that the little princess had fed her yesterday. Yesterday, her throat didn't hurt so much after eating this lozenges. After taking it out, he carefully dismantled one pill. Chin Mo saw the little tiger's actions but didn't pay much attention to it. He even felt that this little tiger was finally not stupid and knew how to find medicine for itself. But in the next second, Chin Mo froze. That was because the little tiger used its height advantage to lift his chin and stuff a pill into his mouth. It was slightly sweet with a hint of bitterness. The taste of Chinese herbal medicine spread from the tip of his tongue. Chin Mo's eyes widened. Not because of anything else, but after that person fed him the pills. She even rubbed his head and said, "Good boy, it's not bitter." As a boy, was he afraid of hardship? Besides, little Bojio, what kind of position are you in? Young Master Chin smiled coldly again. Anyway, it was already dawn. It didn't matter if he threw her out. But before he could say anything, the little tiger looked at him with her big eyes and said, "Momo, you must tell me if you feel uncomfortable. For example, your headache. Yesterday, I had a headache and then a fever. The fever was too stuffy and I couldn't come out to play with you. But this is also my fault. I know that my body is too weak, but I still came to find you." Very good. Once again. Chapter 1427. Chin Mo looked at her. This was the first time he wanted to refute someone so seriously. Little Bojio. MMH? Bojio scratched her ears. She wanted to touch his head, but the little princess didn't seem to like it. Hence, she could only retract her hand. Chin Mo said coldly, "I'm not weak. Remember this." "Okay, you're not weak. But I don't want you to get sick," Bojio said logically. "It's so uncomfortable to be sick. Not only do you have to take medicine, you can't go out and play. You can't eat meat either. You can only eat porridge and vegetables. It's so painful. If you get sick like this, my heart will definitely ache." Hearing this, Chin Mo's gaze paused. He looked at the fierce little face under the morning sun. Maybe it was because the sun was too good today, or maybe it was because there was no impurity in those eyes, which made his heart feel warm. No one could notice his discomfort in time. Since young, his mother had been pampered like a princess by his father. Hence, she was always slower in terms of common sense. She wouldn't take care of him. He knew that he had never blamed anyone. But sometimes, he felt a little lonely. Especially at night, when he felt uncomfortable for the whole day. People would only know that he was sick the next day. That was why he gradually got used to it. When he was sick, it didn't matter if other people were around or not. Even his grandfather, who hadn't passed away, might not be able to notice it immediately when he was sick. But this little tiger knew and gave him a lozenge at the first moment. She even told him. Her heart would ache when he was sick. Chin Mo moved. His fingers instinctively wanted to hold on to something. It was her restless claws that entered his hands. It was soft and suitable for his hands. Except for the fact that she was taller than him. Actually, this little tiger was quite pleasing to the eye. When she didn't speak, she was very obedient. As for other aspects, he could teach her slowly. Since she was the one who took the initiative to come to his side. He had no reason to reject her. It wasn't right. Anyway, her parents didn't care about him. It wasn't a problem for this person to belong to him. Although he didn't have any specific concept of raising a child. But it shouldn't be difficult to raise such a little tiger. What's more, a certain someone was stupid enough to want to buy him. Chin Mo seemed to have confirmed something. He glanced over and helped Bojio roll her sleeves. His voice was calm. Do you think everyone is like you, only liking to eat meat? I'm not the only one who likes to eat meat. Take another 10 steps and you will see the red-haired little William. He likes to eat meat too, but he's afraid of me. Every time he makes a turkey at home, he would offer some to me. His face would always be red. Bojio explained. The roasted turkey is delicious. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows and singled out the name without changing his expression. Little William? Yes, it's nearby. We even made an appointment to eat hamburgers together. Now we can only wait for my cold to recover. Bojio was busy explaining things to little Princess Chin. She didn't realize that Chin Mo's gaze was different from before. Previously, he had given himself a set environment. She thought she had no one to turn to but him. Now, it seemed that this was not the case at all. Also, the name William would only be given to a boy. Chapter 14:28. Chin Mo narrowed his eyes. He was as cold as a prince. When are you guys meeting? The day after tomorrow. Bojio told her little princess everything she knew. Chin Mo seemed to see the desire in her eyes to go out to eat hamburgers. After helping her roll up her sleeves, he said casually, "Your cold should be gone the day after tomorrow. You can go out to eat." When Bojio heard this, she was even happier. Her tiger eyes lit up. "Momo, do you want to go with me?" Her father had said that if she wanted to raise him, she had to show some sincerity and use feelings to communicate. Bojio thought about it and felt that other than sleeping, going out to eat meat was the best way to increase his affection. She didn't know that Chin Mo was waiting for her to say this. He smiled. Okay. He agreed. Bojio blinked. She didn't dare to believe it. After all, Momo had rejected her last night. He had wanted to throw her out of the window. Why was he different today? As expected, her father's words were true. A good night's sleep can increase feelings. Bojio was happy for a while. When she came back to her senses, she realized that little Princess Chin was wiping her hands. She seemed to have become cleaner after being by his side. This was probably what her father had taught her before, you get stained by the company you keep. When she was young, Bojio had a strong comprehension ability. That was why Qin Mo would always have a headache trying to correct her understanding of Chinese characters. The young golden-haired butler was already prepared to send Miss Jo back to the other side as soon as he arrived. After all, he had overheard his young master using a restrained voice to say, "Little Bojo." He didn't expect that. Not only did his young master not allow him to send her back. After breakfast was served, he naturally peeled an egg for Miss Jo, who was sitting opposite him. The most difficult thing to accept was, he even blew on the bowl of porridge beside his hand and pushed it to the opposite side. Wait a minute. The butler started to recall the energetic Chinese culture he had learned about on the internet. The main characters didn't seem like they would do this. His young master didn't seem like he was taking care of someone his age. Instead, he seemed like he was raising a child. No, that wasn't right. He was more meticulous than raising a child. There was a rule in raising a child here. It was to cultivate the child's ability to take care of himself. Things like peeling eggs and blowing on porridge to cool down would never happen here. He didn't know if he had accidentally failed to control his rich expression. Young master, who was eating the soup dumplings, looked up and glanced at him. The golden-haired butler shivered and immediately stood up with the tray, assuming a standard standing posture. Qin Mo retracted his gaze and lowered his head to take another bite of the xilongbao on the bamboo chopsticks. It had been a long time since Bojo had such a scrumptious breakfast. However, there was something she was ashamed of. She preferred to eat with a spoon and didn't have many chances to use chopsticks. Therefore, when she reached for the soup dumplings with her chopsticks, her movements were a little clumsy. The clip fell off. The clip fell off the second time. For the third time, little Tiger Bo simply poked it with her chopsticks. After she poked it up, she howled and placed it all in her mouth. Chapter 1429. Little Tiger Bo felt so happy that she was about to fly. She wanted to use the chopsticks to poke the second dumpling. However, little Princess Qin stopped her. Chopsticks aren't used like this. The voice was calm. Then, he reached out and held her hand. Then, he started to teach her how to hold it. Bojo tilted her head and looked at his posture. She moved the chopsticks in her hand downwards and held them again. Her hands were still a little small. It was still too slow for her to hold things like this. But when she looked at the little princess again, her hand holding the chopsticks was beautiful and accurate. It seemed like it wasn't because of the chopsticks. Bojo grabbed her hair. She was a little annoyed. "I'm too stupid." Although Qin Mo kept calling a certain little tiger stupid, it didn't mean that he would let the little tiger he planned to raise feel inferior to others. Moreover, the little tiger was used to living abroad. It was understandable that she couldn't hold the chopsticks well. He had never raised a child before, but he knew that children had pride. With this thought, he raised his head and said to the golden-haired butler, "Try taking the chopsticks." The young golden-haired butler was a little confused when he heard this request. He didn't know what his young master's intention was at all. But as a qualified butler, he had to complete his master's request. Even though he was a foreigner, he had never used something like chopsticks before. But he had read about it many times in novels. He had always admired the Chinese for being able to use two small pieces of wood as cutlery to eat. The experts in the novels could even use one of the chopsticks to kill people. The young butler believed that as long as he learned slowly, he would be able to do it one day. Hence, when Qin Mo said this, the young butler was very willing to try. With great respect, he picked up the pair of serving chopsticks on the dining table and aimed it at the steaming soup dumplings. The first time, it didn't come up. The second time, it slipped. The third time, he recalled what his young master had said when he was teaching Miss Jo. He didn't use enough strength and one of the chopsticks actually fell. His face was full of question marks. Was it so difficult? The young butler's expression was so rich that he could make an emoticon. As you can see, some adults don't even know how to use chopsticks. It's normal that you can't use them well. At least you can pick things up. MMH. Bojo was elated. She shook her little tiger tail and nodded. Seeing this, Chin Mo thought for a moment and brought the soup dumpling he had picked up to the little tiger's mouth. Since it was all his, he naturally had to be responsible for feeding it. Although he wasn't used to it, he would take it slow. Fortunately, this little tiger was smarter than ordinary people. She would definitely be able to learn how to hold chopsticks quickly. The young butler, who had not finished practicing, was speechless. He felt the deep malice of this world, all because of the chopsticks, the utensils that tested the foreigners. But, young master, don't you think you're being too nice to Miss Jo? Are you going to raise Mr. Bo's child? If Chairman An knew about this, he would definitely be shocked. The young blonde butler had a lot to say to his boss. He was in charge of the young master's daily life. Chairman An had said that if there was even the slightest change in the young master, he had to call him to let him know. It was obvious that he was helping someone raise a child. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.